An adult in a brown suit introduces the two boys. The smiling boy is met with an annoyed inquiry from the other. Alexandre Chamblay formally introduces himself. The narration indicates closeness, but Alexandre pushes away the playful boy. Alexandre travels far for summer vacation visits with his friend. After many summers, Sasha introduces his teddy bear to the man, while Alexandre bites Sasha's finger. Alexandre and Sasha sit contemplating the moonlit ocean. Alexandre notes the night chill and covers Sasha with a cloak. Sasha looks up, surprised by the gesture. Alexandre is revealed as the narrator's first love. Their contact was abruptly severed in their 16th summer. Sasha discovers through a newspaper that Blair Chamblay, Alexandre's mother, has died. Sasha sent many letters to Alexandre for comfort. A woman in a blue coat stands outside dark, snow-dusted gates. Sasha anxiously questions Alexandre's safety and letter delivery. The attendant confirms Alexandre is safe but declines to see her. The attendant offers her Alexandre's reply. She tears open the letter, her eyes widening in shock. 8 years pass, bringing us to the Heiselin barony. Renee Heiselin, Baroness, urges children to finish their meal for school. Renee attempts to mediate a breakfast squabble among the fighting children. Morris threatens the girl, who adamantly refuses. Vienna scolds Morris for running during mealtime. A maid attempts to control the noisy, energetic children, urging them to eat. A dish crashes as Morris rushes by, causing alarm. Renee threatens to revoke apple pie privileges, terrifying the children. The children quickly thank her, then rush off to school. Renee sighs, feeling her mornings are a battlefield. A hand places a dish down with a clink. After inheriting leadership post-war, she took in Whitehall orphans. Her uncle from the monastery, attempting to help, addresses Renee. Two impoverished, forlorn children huddled together under a tattered banner. Renee found it difficult to ignore the children's dire circumstances. The narrator recalls losing her parents young. Renee sits at her desk, overwhelmed by stacks of papers. Ever-growing piles of unpaid bills and receipts loom large. Renee's uncle looks utterly distraught and apologetic. Renee looks furious as her uncle apologizes for buying items due to a discount. Renee shouts "Uncle," slamming her hand on the table. Renee furiously confronts her uncle about excessive purchases like chalkboards, despite existing unpaid bills. Renee, distraught and crying, demands what her uncle plans to do about 200 boxes of chalk and the mansion's exceeding budget. Her uncle, back to Renee, apologetically expresses deep regret over the situation. Her kind-hearted, naive uncle desperately promises to find money, even by selling his belongings. Renee's intense gaze reflects her deep concern. The narration reveals they recently sold land to barely raise money. Renee calls her startled uncle's attention. Renee demands her uncle handle the receipts immediately, offering forgiveness for his quick compliance. Her uncle joyfully promises to handle the task for his beloved niece. Seagulls cry as they soar across the bright sky. Renee gazes out, her expression quietly pensive. The narrator reflects on the unchanging Whitehall Sea amid many changes. Sitting by the ocean, the narrator feels transported back to the past. Alexandre and Renee lie intimately on the beach, bathed in golden light. Alexandre gazes down at Renee, who blushes shyly. Chibi Renee scolds herself for thinking about her first love instead of finances. Renee worries about next month's orphanage expenses, having no money left. Renee sighs, wondering what she will do. A man in a dark suit stands over Renee, who is sitting on the beach. A man in a suit greets Renee, who responds with surprise and recognition. The man, revealed as Alexandre, greets Renee warmly after a long time. Alexandre stands, while Renee sits on the beach, looking toward him. Alexandre asks Renee to marry him. Alexandre promises Renee she won't regret marrying him, while she looks shocked. Alexandre is now the prominent head of the Chambler Marquiste and Chambler Corporation. Alexandre inherited his title at 17, displayed above the family crest. After inheriting the title at 17, Alexandre spent 3 years on the battlefield, then searched for an island with shimmering stones, shown with a map and a group of men. Thanks to overflowing diamonds, Alexandre became a globally recognized tycoon. A hand holds 2 sparkling diamonds, confirming Alexandre's wealth. Alexandre used his wealth to enter the motor industry, developing, quote, the generous car, and is seen assisting a woman into one. Alexandre is now cherished by the queen, holding her hand under an archway. The narration expresses disbelief at Alexandre, a great man, suddenly proposing marriage. Renee recalls accepting the marriage offer for a price, prompted by Alexandre's proposal. It has been 2 years since they entered their contract marriage. The contract marriage served to avoid the Queen's matchmaking attempts. Renee looks at a framed wedding portrait of herself and Alexandra, reflecting on his frequent business trips. Renee questions why Alexandra chose her, then dismisses the thought. Renee walks through a grand hall, anticipating the end of her marriage. The tiresome 2-year contract marriage is ending, as revealed by a divorce agreement annex. Renee approaches a seated older woman, calling her grandmother. Josie Chambly, Alexandra's grandmother, warmly invites Renee to sit. Josie expresses concern for Renee's leg after hearing she was hurt in the study. Renee reassures Josie that she will recover after a few days' rest. Josie asks Renee why her face is dusty, teasing her about rolling on the floor. Josie's expression changes as Renee explains she was searching for something in the study. Renee hands Josie a family photograph. Josie looks fondly at the photograph, expressing her gratitude. Renee smiles, observing Josie. Renee asks Josie about her husband, Gunther, whose framed portrait is visible. Josie describes Gunther as a kind, intelligent naval officer who adored Alexandra. Josie says seeing Alexandra is like seeing young Gunther again, wishing he could be proud of his grandson. The narration reveals that when Alexandra and the narrator were 12, Gunther died in a carriage accident, and Alexandra was greatly affected. Alexandra looks grief-stricken and bloody after the accident. A man extends a hand towards Renee, who looks up at him. Josie expresses immense relief and gratitude that Renee is by Alexandra's side. Josie presents a beautiful, ornate necklace as a gift. Renee asks about the necklace, which Josie explains is a special family heirloom. Josie explains, the necklace grants a wish, and hers came true. Josie tells Renee it is time to pass the necklace to her. Renee calmly tells Josie they are getting divorced, startling Josie. Josie, shocked, questions the sudden divorce, wondering if Alexandra did something wrong, but Renee reassures her it's not like that. Renee explains she doesn't fit marriage or life in Kaliba, planning to return home after divorce. Josie, holding a necklace, eagerly wants Renee to have it despite her plans. Josie eagerly anticipates Renee's wish with the mysterious necklace. A young Renee sits in a bathtub, the sun shining through a window. A hand holds up the glowing, red-jeweled necklace. A serious-looking Renee is depicted, wearing the necklace. A younger Sasha offers a gift to the narrator. Sasha presents a white flower garland to the narrator. Renee asks Sasha if he made the necklace, and he replies she wanted one. Sasha explains he made a temporary necklace due to lacking a jeweler. Sasha promises Renee a better necklace later as he places the garland around her neck. Renee is seen in a bathtub through a window, looking out. Renee, adorned with a necklace, silently wishes for Sasha's happiness. Renee thinks she's crazy for worrying about the world's most successful man. Renee, holding the necklace, tells it to forget her last wish, declaring her new wish is to become rich, like Alexandra. A mother cat and her kittens cheerfully greet the narrator. Renee, in the bathtub, asks the crying kittens if they're hungry, promising snacks. Renee's feet step out of the tub as she dresses. Renee emerges from the bath, drying herself, preparing to fetch cat snacks. Renee walks, followed closely by the mother cat and her kittens. Renee crouches to ask the cats what snacks they want, fish or chicken. Alexandra greets Renee, calling her my wife, causing her to pause. Renee looks surprised and slightly flustered. Alexandra stands observing Renee and her kittens under their wedding portrait. Alexandre, holding a drink, confidently announces his return home. Alexandre smiles confidently, holding a glass. Alexandre stands facing Renee and the cats in the opulent room. Renee questions Alexandra's presence, who calmly asks why not and if something is wrong. Alexandre says he changed his mind about going to the office, despite his usual post-trip routine.
Alexandra gently touches Renee's neck, surprising her.
Renee nervously explains her cat accidentally scratched her, trying to pull away. Alexandra asks if she treated the scratch, while Renee dismisses it. Alexandra insists she needs treatment, stating her skin bruises easily. Alexandra calls Renee Chambly, taking a drink. Alexandra states that as his wife, even if fake, she shouldn't disgrace the Chamberlain name. Renee questions if a scratch tarnishes the family dignity. Alexandra argues her wound could make people call the Chamberlains heartless, urging her to heal quickly. Alexandra says she shouldn't cause him any loss, just as he ensures she loses nothing. The narration notes, he usually spouts annoying things like that. Renee looks directly at the viewer with a neutral expression. Renee asks if Alexandra is drunk, he denies it, then she questions his weird behavior. Renee, frustrated, demands Alexandra act like himself, finding his current behavior uncomfortable. Alexandra stands tall and formal in his suit. Alexandra's hand rests firmly on Renee's shoulder, holding her close. Alexandra suddenly lifts Renee into his arms, shocking her. Renee, shocked, asks what he's doing and demands to be put down, to which he replies he is living up to expectations. Alexandre warns Renee that squirming could open her gown, adding he wouldn't mind. Renee struggles in Alexandra's arms, her hands on his chest. Renee demands Alexandra put her down and never pull such a stunt again.
Alexandre provocatively says he will consider her request.
Renee sits on a cabinet, her feet held gently by Alexandre, who smiles up at her. Renee looks shocked and asks Alexandre why he put her up there, while he smirks and questions if she wants to come down. Alexandra stands confidently, arms outstretched and smiling. Renee, still perched, tells Alexandre to get someone else to help her down, not him, as he questions why her husband is no good but another is fine. Renee insists anyone would be better than Alexandra and demands a chair if he won't call for help, to which he slyly asks if she wants it for no price. Alexandra's face, surrounded by blue flowers, states he missed her, while Renee, seated below, thinks she needs to say it. Chibi Renee on the cabinet questions if Chibi Alexandre hit his head on the business trip, and Chibi Alexandre boasts he's fulfilling his role to make her blood boil, asking if she's not a fan now. Renee looks distraught, questioning how Alexandre could say such things or force someone else to, as he calls her darling, and she looks shocked. Renee prepares to descend from the cabinet, while Alexandre holds his arms open, looking up at her. Renee screams, "Stop!" and warns Alexandre not to say another word, as his hand with a ring covers his mouth. Renee's wide, shocked eyes and outstretched hand show her distress. Narration describes their public pretense of love versus private animosity and constant fighting, depicted by a kissing couple over roses and then figures back to back over thorny vines and shattered glass. Alexandre smirks, questioning if she comes back and looks at him like that. Renee thinks Alexandre definitely ate something weird or is scheming something. Renee's legs hang from the cabinet, as her own eye and Alexandra's eye show surprise, with her thinking she'd bruise her knees. Renee falls towards Alexandre, her arm touching his chest as he looks up. Renee lies sprawled on the floor after a thud. Renee lies on the floor, letting out a frustrated ugh. Renee lies on top of Alexandre, their faces close, as she gasps, ah. Renee's and Alexandra's lips are shown almost touching. Renee quickly sits up, startling as she lands on Alexandre, who is still on the floor. Renee looks down at Alexandra, with wide, shocked eyes. Alexandra looks up at Renee, his expression subtle. Renee covers her mouth in shock, eyes wide. Renee covers her face, apologizing to Alexandra, calling it an accident and insisting their lips didn't touch. Alexandra's leg is shown, as Renee's thoughts insist their lips didn't touch and they just almost bumped into each other. Renee and Alexandre exchange glances, Renee's hand clasped at her chest. Renee sits on the floor with clasped hands, while Alexandre sits behind her. Renee stands abruptly, apologizing to Alexandre and telling him she will see him later. Renee walks away, bidding farewell, leaving a surprised Alexandre on the floor. Alexandre smirks, a subtle gleam in his eye. Alexandre speaks with Gabriel by his car outside the mansion. Gabriel looks concerned, questioning Alexandre if something is wrong. Sunlight streams through a window, highlighting the brick wall outside. Alexandre, seen from behind, states no. Renee watches Alexandre's car from a window inside the mansion. Renee peeks from behind a curtain, her expression serious and watchful. Renee and Alexandre share a close-up kiss. Their faces draw close for another kiss, with a soft thump sound. Alexandre reaches for Renee's hand, a ring visible on his finger. Renee looks shocked as she lies on Alexandre. Alexandra lies on his back, looking up. Renee's face shows a blush as she silently reacts. Renee covers her face, thinking she's seriously losing it. Renee looks surprised as someone calls out to her. Rosa Rentes, the maid, offers to apply ointment and asks Renee to sit. Rosa Rentes applies ointment to Renee's neck while they sit on a couch in a sunlit room. Renee, touching her neck, asks Rosa Rentes if Alexandre has left the office. Rosa Rentes confirms he won't be back for days due to motor show preparations. Alexandre announced plans for a more affordable car, the generous W, highlighted in a spotlight. That sparked massive investments and pre-orders, leading to a historic motor show scheduled by Chambler Company for the launch of the generous W. Renee questions why the contract must end now and regrets not having a proper divorce discussion. Rosa Rentes, the maid, tells Renee the treatment is done, warns her to be careful, and mentions Alexandre is worried about her. Rosa Rentes confirms Alexandre specifically requested Renee be treated, then thinks he truly loves her. Renee looks away, dismissing Rosa Rentes' suggestion that Alexandre loves her. Renee thinks Alexandre is an amazing, award-worthy actor. Alexandre thinks once they divorce, he won't have to endure Renee's garbage act anymore. Renee, seen from behind, thinks, thank goodness. Renee glances over her shoulder, her expression sharp, as a sound effect indicates her movement. A woman in a yellow dress stands in the doorway, observing Renee and Rosa Rentes on the sofa. The woman in the yellow dress asks if it's true her brother stopped by earlier. Nina Chamblay, a woman in a yellow dress with a determined expression, thinks she will finally be rid of that wretched Nina Chamblay. A wide shot reveals the room with the woman in the yellow dress standing near the sofa, where Renee and Rosa Rentes are seated. Nina Chamblay demands an answer about Alexandre's visit, while Renee questions if Nina Chamblay shouldn't apologize first for barging in. Nina Chamblay dismisses Renee's rudeness as her lack of education, while Renee asks if Nina Chamblay is trying to embarrass her. Rosa Rentes looks shocked as Nina Chamblay criticizes Renee's rudeness and country roots, questioning why Alexandre settled for her. Renee calmly informs Nina Chamblay that Alexandre was the one who proposed, not her. Renee, with a stern expression, tells Nina Chamblay that she is hardly in a position to criticize. Nina Chamblay glares, her eyes narrowed, and shouts, "What did you just say?" The narration explains the Marchioness of Chambler passed away before Sasha turned 15, and 3 months later, the Marquis remarried a common seamstress. The narration continues, explaining that a fire caused by Alexandre's mistake led him to financially support Maggie and Nina. Unlike Maggie, Nina remained on the estate, obsessively fixated on Alexandre and hostile towards Renee. Renee tells Nina Chamblay, "Find Nina," confirming her brother stopped by and went straight to the office. Renee suggests Nina Chamblay throw tantrums at Chambler Company, but doubts Alexandre would humor her, leaving Nina Chamblay stunned. Nina Chamblay's hand clenches in frustration, thinking Renee is just a bedwarmer acting superior. Nina Chamblay stands defiantly, while Renee watches from the background. Renee looks on with a sharp expression, as a sound effect signifies a tense atmosphere. Rosa Rentes, the maid, asks Renee if she is okay, looking worried. Renee reassures Rosa Rentes she is fine and tells her to rest, then asks her to call if anything is needed, to which Rosa Rentes agrees. A moonlight view of the mansion is followed by a sound effect, as a hand holding a glowing lantern appears, and a man asks, "Why? Did something happen?" 2 staff members, one in a suit and one in a purple dress, discuss how the young lady caused a scene, and while usually leaving it alone, one feels it's time to intervene. Andrea, the housekeeper of Chambler Estate, questions the sudden cat allergy Nina Chamblay developed, mentioning she's been pestering Renee to get rid of her cats. Gabriel, manager of Chambler Estate, looking skeptical, questions how a cat allergy suddenly appeared when she's never had issues before. Andrea, the housekeeper, agrees it's suspicious, suggesting they consult an expert, but Gabriel shushes her. Gabriel, holding papers, suggests an amount, asking still no, then insists on a little help, and tells Andrea to think about it. A footstep is heard, then Gabriel questions, "Who's there? And what are they doing here at this hour?" as he and Andrea look toward a new arrival. Gabriel and Andrea look shocked, their eyes wide. A quiet footstep is heard, as Gabriel and Andrea stand illuminated by a lantern. Gabriel and Andrea stare wide-eyed, their faces filled with shock. Andrea asks if they should check every room. Gabriel suggests letting it go, noting it's common for servants to trade duties, and they shouldn't wake everyone for such a matter. Renee asks her grandmother about her leg by a sparkling fountain, and her grandmother replies, "It's much better." Renee playfully says her grandmother will be ready for a marathon, to which her grandmother chuckles, calling her jokes silly. Josie Chamblay, Alexandre's grandmother, asks Renee if Alexandre has returned since going to the office yesterday. Renee explains Alexandre works tirelessly, never getting tired, even exercising during breaks, making her wonder if he's human. Josie Chamblay reassures Renee that Alexandre is human, stating she remembers the day he was born. Josie Chamblay holds a crying baby, remarking he had no tail or scales, but looked a bit like a monkey, making Chibi, Renee, and Josie laugh. A man in a light shirt and brown pants addresses Renee and Josie Chamblay, saying, "Ladies." Alexandre is seen in a casual outfit, his hands in his pockets, walking outdoors. Renee asks if Alexandre's back, and he confirms, addressing Josie Chamblay. Alexandre, in a light shirt, adjusts his hair, calling his disheveled look that of a businessman after an all-nighter, and asks if he looks cool. Chibi Josie Chambly replies, "He looks like the world's most fashionable homeless man," to which Chibi Alexandre confidently retorts, "He must be the richest homeless man then." Alexandre stands with his arm around Renee, stating he has something to discuss with her. Renee's hand clenches her dress, as her face shows a bead of sweat, thinking, Renee suggests they all eat breakfast first, telling the older woman she must be hungry too, while Andrea gently taps Renee's hand. The older woman declines, saying she is fine. The older woman explains she walked more than usual and is tired, choosing to rest and telling Alexandre and Renee to go ahead. The older woman asks Andrea to help her to her room, and Andrea agrees. Alexandre informs Renee that construction workers will arrive next week for a simple annex project, which won't take long. Renee then questions the type of construction. He reveals they are installing a lift as Renee looks at him, leaning slightly. Alexandre kept a distance from his grandmother, showing politeness but never truly sharing anything, depicted by silhouettes walking apart. Alexandre's secretary presents him with the lift installation contract for the annex, asking for his signature. A pen is shown signing over a wedding picture of Renee, as she thinks she didn't understand but never asked, believing it's a line a fake wife shouldn't cross. Renee looks forward, announcing to her grandmother that they will be going now. Her expression reveals surprise and confusion. Alexandre tells Renee to rest well as they stand together, with him smiling. Their hands are clasped together in a gentle squeeze. They walk through a grand hall, still holding hands. Renee looks thoughtful, pondering why Alexandre has been touching her so much since yesterday. Her thoughts recall Alexandre used to flinch from accidental brushes, now wondering what changed as his hand, with a ring, rests on her arm. Renee continues to ponder that something definitely changed after that trip, questioning what it could be. Renee tells Alexandre no one is watching, and he can let go of her hand. He replies, Alexandre, with a hand to his head, apologizes, stating he is tired and didn't notice. Renee acknowledges his exhaustion, then asks about the discussion he mentioned earlier. Alexandre's hand places an envelope, announcing a dinner banquet in 2 days for Brighton College graduates at the Royal Palace. They stand by a closed door, and Alexandre states it's an indoor event, so it shouldn't matter. Alexandre smirks, revealing he told them he wouldn't go if it rained, causing Renee to look shocked. Brighton College is the world's most prestigious institution, whose high-ranking noble and royal alumni now include Alexandre's classmates. The narration continues, noting these powerful individuals rescheduled the entire event for Alexandre. Renee watches him walk away.
Chibi Alexander comments on a nagging wife who sees her husband on their bed for the first time in 3 months, while Chibi Renee retorts he was the one who insisted they shouldn't use separate beds.
Renee, with a knowing look, tells Alexandre to stop talking and start changing, averting her eyes. Alexandre stands shirtless, removing his shirt and revealing his toned physique. Alexandre looks at Renee, questioning if she didn't just tell him to change clothes. He unbuckles his pants, asking if there's a problem, making a Chibi Renee furiously demand he put on pajamas and not undress here, with a metallic click. Renee rushes to get his pajamas from the dressing room, leaving him standing shirtless by the bed with a whoosh and rustle. Alexandre looks thoughtful, with a subtle look of confusion. Renee stands in the doorway, holding pajamas, questioning why he isn't answering. Her expression is startled, with a bead of sweat on her face. Alexandre lies in bed, shirtless and relaxed. He remains comfortably in bed. Alexandre sleeps soundly in bed, while his previous clothes are neatly folded nearby. He lies asleep in bed, covered, while Renee stands at the foot of the bed, observing him, making a light gasp. Renee looks shocked and flustered, covering her mouth, thinking he took off everything. Alexandre, now in a suit, looks contemplative, holding a pen, wondering why. Renee, dressed elegantly, explains they are not a real married couple and their contract limited physical contact, explicitly prohibiting sexual relations. Alexandre questions Renee's big deal about sharing a bed, claiming it doesn't automatically imply anything more. Renee counters that she shouldn't uncomfortably share a bed when they are merely... Alexandre explains that appearing as a real couple was part of their contract, necessitating some discomfort. He adds that he doesn't often sleep at home, traveling frequently and sometimes sleeping at the office. Renee ponders why Alexandre always comes home if he could nap at the office, with a soft rustling sound, as she sits on the floor while he lies in bed. She looks thoughtful, recalling he even had a private room at the company. Renee gently touches Alexandre's forehead, checking his temperature. Her hand gently caresses his forehead as he lies peacefully. Renee smiles subtly with a pensive expression. Alexandra sleeps peacefully, prompting a thought that he almost looks like his younger self. Chibi Renee holds Chibi Alexandra's hand, wondering what happened to his cute personality. Renee cries out in a loud, shocked scream. Two cats run frantically, one letting out a sharp meow. Renee stands over the bed, telling Sunny and Lucky to stop running and calm down. A cat hides under the sheet, drawing an exasperated plea while Alexandra's eye shows surprise. Renee looks surprised as a shirtless Alexandra asks in frustration, "What is in the blanket?" Renee apologizes to Alexandra about the cat under the blanket, reassuring him she will remove it and asking him to hold still. Renee triumphantly declares she's caught the little rascal and orders it to come out, her eyes gleaming. Alexandre declares what he's holding is not a cat, as it doesn't feel like one, surprising Renee. Alexandre looks intently at the viewer, a blush on his face, reiterating that it's not a cat. Renee's face shows wide-eyed shock. Renee sits on the floor, looking distressed and clutching her chest. A shirtless and embarrassed Alexandra covers his face, holding onto the blanket. Alexandra remains in bed while Renee sits on the floor, a cat near them. A small boy intensely shouts, "Mister!" The man sits quietly on a sandy beach, looking out at the ocean. Seagulls soar in a bright cloud-filled sky as a voice questions its location. The man on the beach wonders if he's in Whitehall and why he's there. The man sits on the beach, looking at the small boy who asks a question. Heinz introduces himself and asks the man if he knows Renee Heiselin, who responds with surprise. Heinz explains his childhood closeness with Renee and asks how the man knows her, to which the man gives a coy reply. Chibi Heinz playfully declares his answer is a secret. The man looks at Heinz, bewildered, wondering if he is from the Heiselin orphanage. The man stares at Heinz, wondering why the boy's appearance seems so familiar. A young Renee smiles brightly, introducing herself as Renee Heiselin.
The man looks at Heinz, contemplating the young girl.
A young Renee smiles cheerfully, introducing herself as Renee Heiselin. Heinz looks up at the man, beginning to share information. Heinz reveals Renee often talked about the man, who then curiously asks what she said. Heinz lists Renee's criticisms of the man's personality, who promptly silences him. Heinz asks what's wrong, startled by the man's intense gaze. The man looks seriously at the viewer, asking if they love Renee Heiselin. The man contemplates the concept of love while gazing at shimmering blue water. The man recalls a series of memories, a boy with flowers, a piggyback ride, and two young figures embracing by a gravestone. Renee's eye is shown, then a cheerful young Sasha appears with a doll as someone exclaims his name. Petals float gracefully, as a young Renee looks thoughtfully. Renee wears a serious and pensive expression. Renee sits small on a sandy slope, while the man in a suit stands far above her. The man gazes out at the sky, his pensive eye shown in a close-up. Gabriel informs the man about a dinner banquet and delivers a note from Madame. The man tells Gabriel to prepare the car in 30 minutes as he gets ready. Gabriel is surprised the man will arrive early, but the man calmly states it's fine. The man, holding a note, mentions a stop he needs to make before picking up his wife. A bustling street scene unfolds, with a boy pulling a girl through the crowd. Renee, focused, sits at her desk, writing with a quill as someone calls, "President." A hand places a stack of papers down with a soft talk. Dorothy Dunfell, an employee, smiles warmly behind a stack of papers. Chibi Dorothy asks Renee to review a contract, and Renee seems ready to add more. Renee looks at the piles of papers, seemingly overwhelmed, but Dorothy urges her not to act so. Dorothy excitedly explains their soap is growing in popularity and they must seize the moment. Renee smiles softly, listening to Dorothy. Renee used extra capital from the marriage contract to create jobs for orphans, recalling her cousin Winchester's soap factory. Narration highlights the soap's quality, noting that expanding the factory for recognition would create more jobs. Renee and another woman marvel at soaps, as narration states they stocked soap in 10 department stores within a year. Dorothy proudly announces they now have a proper office with talented staff, stating she's heading to a department store to check display stand locations. Renee encourages Dorothy to grab food, offering to pay, and Dorothy happily accepts. Dorothy bids Renee farewell until tomorrow, reminding her to enjoy the dinner banquet with her husband as Renee smiles gently. A wall clock indicates time, reminding Renee the banquet starts in 2 hours. Renee, feeling flustered, admits she's been avoiding Alexandra since that day and worries about facing him. Renee looks at her hand, adorned with a ring, then observes it with a thoughtful expression. Alexandre, do you take Renee to be your wife, to love her and comfort her, honor and keep her, in sickness and in health, and forsaking all others? Be faithful to her as long as you both shall live. Alexandre smiles, confidently replying, yes. A close-up shows hands intertwined, with Alexandre's hand sporting a ring as he declares, I do. Renee, writing at her desk, reflects on gaining much from the contract, both materially and experientially. Renee's hand rests on papers, pondering what exactly she gained from the marriage. Renee looks pensively at a screen in front of her. Renee gazes at a framed wedding portrait, questioning what Alexandre expected from her in this marriage. Renee looks thoughtfully at a framed wedding portrait, wondering what Alexandre expected from her in this marriage. Renee looks up as someone sharply asks if this is Mrs. Chamblay's office. Dress designer Rentier Gabier introduces herself to Mrs. Chamblay, stating she is in charge of styling today. Renee welcomes Rentier Gabier, expressing honor, and Rentier Gabier confidently states she will handle everything. Renee, with a determined smile, is told that today she will be made the most beautiful woman there, as an open suitcase full of clothes sits above. An ornate building stands against a sunset-colored sky. A man in a suit looks curious as someone calls out, President. A man in a fedora informs another man by a car that an urgent matter has arisen, and the second man questions what it is. Louis Dumpel, Alexandre's direct secretary, in a fedora explains a last-minute request from a motor show partner needs immediate resolution. Louis attempts to give Alexandre documents to review, but a woman runs toward Alexandre, calling his name and demanding he wait. Nina Chamblay, looking flustered, says she wants to talk to Alexandre. Nina's maid, Melinda Gosling, expresses concern for Nina, urging her not to collapse from running. Louis asks Nina if she's unwell and offers to escort her, but Nina insists she's fine. Nina asks Alexandre if he's attending a dinner party and needs a partner. Nina suggests Alexandre go with her instead of Renee today, touching his arm. Alexandre apologizes to Nina, declining her request. Alexandre explains he already promised his wife, so he can't go with Nina. Louis and Melinda look shocked as Nina angrily calls Alexandre unbelievable. Nina passionately blames Alexandre for ruining her life, disabling her, preventing her from going out freely or marrying, and questions if he feels sorry. Nina cries out, holding up her arm, asking Alexandre to look at what he's done. Nina's face contorts in anger, demanding Alexandre look closely at the scar on her shoulder and what he's done. Alexandre looks on with a calm, neutral expression. Alexandre stands still, his eyes closed, as Nina shouts, "You demon!" Alexandre stands with his back to the viewer, as Nina shouts that he destroyed everything. Alexandre, wearing gloves, promises to take someone somewhere nicer next time. Alexandre, adjusting his hair, tells someone to go shopping if they're bored. Nina and Melinda stand by a vintage car outside a building. Nina looks displeased, crossing her arms. A cafe scene shows people dining outdoors. 3 women at a table discuss the car, one wondering if it's Chambler Corp's the Generous. The women marvel at the luxury car, wondering who could be driving such a vehicle in that place. Someone, standing by a car wheel, recalls hearing people saw Mrs. Chamblay around here, feeling a sense of disbelief. A foot steps down, as a thought bubble expresses, "No way." Alexandre Chamblay stands by a car, looking elegant and composed. Renee is seen in a striking golden dress and white gloves, looking surprised. With a close-up of her face, Renee, in her golden dress, asks Alexandre what he thinks of her different style today. Alexandre pulls Renee close, his head near hers. A romantic moment. Renee, surprised, questions Alexandre's actions as he holds her by the neck. Alexandre, with a confident smile, says he has a gift for Renee, who looks surprised. Louis explains Alexandre personally picked out the necklace, telling Renee it suits her, and she thanks him. Renee looks at the necklace, wondering why Alexandre bought her a present, and if he's gone mad, planning to see Dr. Lupes. Alexandre extends his hand, looking at Renee, and calls her Mrs. Chamblay. A grand house is seen at night, as a shrill scream rings out, and roses fall amidst broken glass. Melinda urges Nina to calm down, worried she'll get hurt, as broken roses and glass litter the floor around them. Nina glares intensely, thinking about how someone dared to steal what's hers. A woman in a dark dress tells another woman that they will soon enter a wealthy family. The woman adds that everything in the house will belong to the second woman alone, as the camera focuses on Alexander. A portrait of young Master Alexander hangs on a wall with a thought bubble, wondering if he isn't dreamy. Two maids, carrying baskets, discuss Alexandre being locked in the attic, one wondering if letting him out would make him look kindly upon her. Nina, in a blue dress, sternly asks the maids why they aren't working, threatening to have them kicked out. The maids quickly apologize to Nina and rush away. Nina's face is seen in profile with a stern expression. Nina stares at a portrait of Alexandre. Nina smiles wistfully. Nina stands, holding a lantern, with a determined expression, declaring, "I want him." A bruised and dirty Alexandre sits, thinking, "I want." A close-up shows Alexandre's bloodied hands and arms. Nina, sitting beside a bruised Alexandre, tells him she'll talk to his father for him and urges him to apologize to avoid further punishment. Alexandre looks up with a defiant expression, questioning Nina's authority to tell him what to do. Nina, placing her hand on Alexandre's arm, claims she's part of his family now. Alexandre firmly tells Nina and Asha not to kid herself, stating they will never be anything to each other. Alexandre, with a scar on his cheek, asks if Nina, who married for money, thinks she belongs. Nina, distressed, claims it's a misunderstanding. Alexandre questions if he's supposed to believe a woman claiming to be his mother's friend married her friend's husband for love just 3 months later. Nina looks shocked and distressed, vehemently denying Alexandre's accusations. Nina explains that after Alexandre's mother passed, his father and her mother comforted each other, and feelings developed, stating emotions don't always follow reason. Nina argues her mother initially rejected the Marquis' proposal, but he persuaded her, claiming it was for the children to have proper parents, and insists there was no other reason. Alexandre, with a sardonic smile, questions if he's supposed to believe her story. Alexandre tells Nina to look at her dress and jewelry, pointing out their exorbitant cost, equivalent to a year's budget for the mansion. Alexandre reveals Nina and her mother bought luxury goods daily, demanded control of finances, and purchased land and a villa under her mother's name, then asks if she's still playing games. Alexandre, clenching his bruised fist, asks who Nina thinks is responsible for him being locked up. Nina attempts to explain everything, but Alexandre cuts her off, stating he's sick of her and her mother. Alexandre tells Nina to take her pathetic excuses and get lost as he unlocks the door. Nina yells at Alexandre to stop, but he pushes her away, causing her to cry out in pain. Nina lies on the floor, clutching her shoulder in pain. Nina lies on the floor, looking distraught. Nina looks shocked and holds her shoulder, asking, "Hey." Nina clutches her shoulder, thinking about the pain. A close-up of a burning eye against a backdrop of fire shows a furious blaze. A grand mansion is depicted, with narration stating it completely burned to the ground. 3 police officers discuss the Marquis' death in the fire and the severe injuries of his mother and stepdaughter, wondering how such a tragedy occurred. A police officer sits, thinking that the new wife and her daughter will probably be kicked out. A police officer questions Nina, who's in a hospital gown, about the fire that started from a shattered oil lamp, as she was the only witness. Nina, with a bandaged shoulder, states that day Alexandre shoved her on his way out of the attic. Alexandre, in a close-up, accepts full responsibility, claiming it happened because of him. Nina looks shocked as Alexandre tells her to name whatever she wants. A portrait of Alexandre hangs on a wall, with text questioning, "Burns, lung damage?" Nina smiles menacingly, a sinister expression on her face. Nina stands, looking distraught, illuminated in a ghostly light. Nina lies on the floor amidst broken glass and roses, vowing not to let that bitch steal him away, as a maid apologizes. A maid approaches Nina, calling her name. A man's feet are seen as he addresses a maid, stating he came regarding the message sent through Melinda. Nina smiles deceptively, telling the man to go ahead. Rosa, a maid, looks at the viewer with a neutral expression. Rosa, looking tired, thinks it's past midnight, and she needs to rest in her room after finishing extra work. Melinda addresses Rosa, asking to speak with her. Melinda informs Rosa that she will be helping Lady Nina, and that her pay will be good if she follows instructions. Rosa looks shocked as Melinda asks for help getting the madam kicked out. Rosa, a personal maid, refuses Nina's request, stating she cannot drive out her master, and apologetically pretends not to have heard the suggestion. Melinda, ignoring Rosa, bids her to rest well. Melinda glares at Rosa, thinking how frustrating it is that people without status never listen when spoken to nicely. Melinda challenges Rosa Feather, asking if she truly thinks she can reject her offer. Melinda threatens Rosa, stating she'll be fired and blacklisted from working again if she leaves. Melinda cruelly reminds Rosa of her sick mother, implying her mother won't live long if Rosa loses her job. Melinda challenges Rosa's loyalty, questioning if it outweighs her family. Melinda, with a cruel smile, leans in to tell Rosa her task. A grand castle is shown, and within, people discuss Mrs. Chambly attending and how she's a baron's daughter. People at the banquet gossip, finding it shocking that Mr. Chambly married a country bumpkin instead of a royal. Socialites gossip about the mysterious woman who snared Alexandra, noting her quiet demeanor and early departures from events. Alexandre and Renee arrive, and everyone agrees she is an incredibly rare beauty. Renee asks why everyone is staring, finding it overwhelming, and Alexandra replies it's probably because she is beautiful. Renee, walking down a grand staircase with Alexandre, humbly dismisses his compliment. Alexandre intimately tells Renee she is the most beautiful lady there, surprising her. Alexandra's smiling face is shown, as Renee thinks his compliments are ridiculous and wonders what's going on with him and the earlier necklace. Renee gasps in shock, her eyes wide. Renee imagines herself as a chess piece on a chessboard, speculating if Alexandre is trying to get something from her before the divorce or gain other benefits. Chibi Renee glares, clinging to Chibi Alexandre, convinced there's a hidden motive behind his actions. A sparkling chandelier illuminates the thought that a man who could have anything he wants. Louis approaches Alexandre Renee, urgently calling out Sir. Louis apologetically informs Alexandra that a partner company from earlier needs to speak with him directly. Alexandra tells Renee to go ahead, promising he'll be there soon. Renee walks away, leaving Alexandra behind, with footsteps echoing. Chibi Renee sighs, admitting attending such events alone is awkward. Renee decides to find a quieter place to rest. A man, catching Renee's eye, questions Renee Heiselin. Renee turns, her eyes wide with surprise, as the man confirms her identity. Lauren, a woman in a purple dress, greets Renee, reminding her they went to school together in Whitehall, and exclaiming, "It's been so long." Renee looks surprised, questioning if it's really been 11 years, as Lauren smiles. 3 children yell at another child, accusing them of being a thief and demanding their money back. An 11-year-old Renee Heiselin, looking upset, denies the accusation of theft. The children accuse Renee of lying, stating her family is a barony in name only, paupers who can't even afford servants. The girl in the red dress demands her gift back and asks for proof, while young Renee, with dirt on her face, denies taking money and also asks for proof, which the girl in red claims they have. The girl in the red dress accuses young Renee of going through Lauren's bag, but young Renee denies knowing what Lauren's bag looks like. The girl in the red dress demands young Renee return the item and kicks her, with a tack sound as young Renee retaliates, calling her crazy. A loud impact echoes with a quang dong tong sound. Blood trickles from young Renee's nose and a cut on her lip. With a bloody nose and injured lip, young Renee glares intently, clenching her fist. The girl in the red dress mockingly asks if young Renee plans to glare her to death. The girl in the red dress taunts young Renee about her lack of money, parents, and sick grandfather, questioning what her family can do. Young Renee asks why she is being targeted, questioning what she did, and the girl in red dress replies, "Nothing really." The girl in red dress dismisses young Renee, calling her annoying and stating no grand reason is needed for her actions. The girl in red dress states whether young Renee stole money or not is irrelevant, accompanied by a thud as she closes a book. With a sharp JIK tearing sound, the girl in red dress declares she decided young Renee was the thief, her intense eye reflecting paper fragments. A smiling young boy thanks his father for a book. The young boy worries about the book's cost, stating they lack money, as his father pats his head with a pat sound. The father reassures the boy the expensive book is worth it, being his first birthday gift. The ailing father apologizes for his sickness, wishing he could do more for his son. The young boy is told he is precious and has endless potential, with a plea to continue. The girl in the red dress holds an illustrated book, hoping it brings hope. Young Renee looks startled and hurt, surrounded by falling paper fragments. The narration reveals the bullying by Lauren ended when the narrator, now identified as Renee, was 15 and Lauren left, only for Renee to discover Lauren became the wife of the Marquis of Height. Lauren smirks, adorned with ornate jewelry. Lauren asks Renee why she's quiet, questioning if she doesn't remember her. Renee reflects on Lauren, giving her many unforgettable memories, as images of a torn book are shown. Renee's intense expression continues, filled with thoughts of unforgettable memories amid falling paper fragments. Lauren smirks, holding a wine glass, asking for confirmation. Lauren says it's a shame they didn't make more memories, and is glad to meet again with a clink of glasses. Lauren compliments Renee's newfound refinement, noting her beauty was once overshadowed by her family name. Lauren mocks Renee, implying she sold herself for her noble venture, claiming she has no real qualifications. Lauren proposes a toast to Kaliba's Cinderella for her lucrative marriage deal. Renee angrily criticizes Lauren's unchanging habit of spreading baseless lies, likening her moral inferiority to an incurable animal, accompanied by a snap sound. Lauren insults Renee, saying her true place is the Kaliba Zoo, not the Height estate. Lauren defends her standing in high society, then questions Renee's qualifications while a crowd mingles in the ballroom. A dark accusation emerges. Renee is a burden to the Kemble family, causing rumors and scandals for Mr. Kemble, depicted with thorny vines and blood. Renee, in a golden dress, looks serious and asks if she is wrong. Renee subtly taps her arm with a tap sound, identifying the woman as Mrs. Height. Alexandre interrupts, stating he believes a misunderstanding needs to be cleared, placing his hand on Renee's shoulder. Alexandre embraces Renee, declaring his childhood love and persistent efforts to make her his wife, despite her initial rejections. Alexandre whispers an apology to a surprised Renee for being late, while Lauren looks annoyed. A soft whisper sound, "Chew," heard. Marquise Feelheight greets Lauren with a chew kissing sound, announcing great news. Lauren observes Alexandra's unchanging expression, finding it unbelievable, while Marquis Feelheight feels like he's living a dream. Lauren, smirking, boasts about her past as the Queen of Cards, eager to show off her skills again. Shoo. Lauren invites Alexandre and Renee to join a card game, emphasizing the Kemble family's wealth in the pot. Renee looks worried, letting out a gasp, standing beside Alexandre. Renee whispers to Alexandre, questioning his agreement to join the game, confessing her poor card skills, and worrying about losing all their money. Alexandre questions Renee's negative outlook, reassures her that losing everything is fine, and insists he is serious. Alexandre reminds Renee he said he would lose everything, then states he doesn't mind as his money continues to multiply. Alexandre stands with his arm around Renee, who gazes up at him. Cards and chips are scattered, revealing a full house and a straight flush, as one exclaims about the entertaining game and the other shouts, "It's impossible," accompanied by a sharp thud. Lauren looks shocked and frustrated at the card table, questioning how such a winning hand appeared, with a sigh. The Marquis Feelheight questions how much Mrs. Height lost, stating she cleaned out the family vault. A man in a dark suit stands by a sitting woman in a purple dress, who thinks about a large sum of money won or lost, pondering, "What now?" The man in the dark suit yells angrily at the woman in the purple dress, questioning if she is insane. The man in the dark suit continues his enraged outburst, lamenting losses of 1 billion leaden and her earlier arrogance. The woman in the purple dress looks distressed, denying the accusations and insisting a straight flush shouldn't have been possible. Alexandre, in a light gray suit, calmly asks Lauren Height if she's accusing him of cheating, stating he's not clever enough for such tricks with witnesses. Lauren Height looks distraught as Alexandra proposes to settle the bill, and she pleads for him to wait. In a grand room surrounded by onlookers, Lauren Height tries to downplay the game as friendly, but Alexandra insists he is a businessman who values proper accounting. The man in the dark suit angrily tells Lauren Height to figure out her own mess, while Alexandra smirks, threatening this is the end of us if she fails. Alexandra looks on with feigned regret, commenting on the unfortunate turn of events as Lauren Height stands distressed. Alexandre smirks, raising a glass of wine to toast Lauren Height for failing her marriage gamble, horrifying her. Overplaying cards, Lauren Height requests to speak with Alexandra in private, but he instructs her to say it publicly. Alexandre confronts Lauren Height, suggesting her desire for privacy is to seduce her friend's husband, shaming her publicly. Onlookers gossip about Lauren Height's tension around Mrs. Kemble and speculate about the ruin of Count Saria's family if Lauren divorces, as her face shows distress. Lauren Height desperately clasps her gloved hands, admitting she has no money and begging Alexandra to overlook her debt just this once. Alexandra listens to Lauren Height's plea, which echoes in a thought bubble, but he remains unmoved. Alexandra offers Lauren Height another option if she insists, and she eagerly agrees to hear it. Lauren Height looks utterly shocked, as Alexandra demands she kneel and beg his wife for forgiveness immediately. Alexandra smiles slyly, holding his wine glass, suggesting he might show mercy for his wife's sake. Rain falls heavily over a dark, rocky landscape and water, creating a somber atmosphere. A hand turns the torn, illustrated pages of an old book featuring rabbits, indicating damage or loss. A young boy named Sasha, with a scratch on his cheek, looks surprised and upset amidst floating paper fragments. Young Alexandra, in a dark suit, questions Sasha about the scratch on his face as rain falls around them. Sasha dismisses his injury as tripping, then questions young Alexandra's presence in the rain. Young Alexandra and Sasha sit together as Alexandra questions why Sasha didn't fight back, believing he's not one to take a beating. Sasha looks shocked, stammering at young Alexandra, who observes him intently. Sasha looks distressed while young Alexandra, smiling subtly, gives an evasive, who knows, reply. A hand grabs Sasha's arm as he thinks about the embarrassment of being seen, realizing there's no point in retaliating against a count's daughter without support. Young Alexander, holding a book over Sasha's head, questions what the boy is doing, startling him. Sasha looks shocked, holding the book and asking how young Alexandra managed it. A shimmering page from the book reveals intricate markings, indicating its special nature. Young Alexandra smiles, looking at Sasha, who is now holding the repaired book. Adult Alexandra walks contemplatively through a sunlit, green, wooded area. Adult Alexander wonders aloud why she hasn't appeared all day. Adult Alexander looks serious as a thought bubble refers to the absent girl Renee Hazelin. Adult Alexandra overhears others gossiping about Renee Hazelin's unwavering pride, noting she hasn't cried despite everything. Lauren Height, in a red dress, smirks as a man asks what to do with Renee's book. Lauren Height orders the man to toss Renee's book into the sea, and he eagerly agrees to throw it far. A hand, presumably young Alexandra's, swiftly grabs the book from the man's grasp with a quick tap. The man looks shocked, exclaiming in surprise as young Alexandra holds the book, with Lauren Height looking displeased in the background. Young Alexandra is confronted by the man, who demands to know why he suddenly grabbed the book. Lauren Height looks confused, asking where the rest of the book is and if she's being ignored. Young Alexandra glares furiously, demanding to know where all the torn pages are. Young Alexander sits with Sasha by a rocky shore, telling him he spent all night painstakingly reassembling the shredded pages. Young Alexandra smirks at Sasha, claiming he now owes him a life debt. Sasha, holding the book, looks tearful and overwhelmed. Young Alexandra asks Sasha why he's crying, and Sasha replies he's just happy. Young Alexandra gently wipes Sasha's tears with a soft rustle, telling him not to cry. Young Alexandra teases Sasha, telling him he looks even uglier when he cries. Chibi versions of Sasha and young Alexandra playfully bicker, Sasha hitting Alexandra for his mean comments. Sasha thanks young Alexandra for finding his precious book, and Alexandra asks why it means so much to him. The young boy states this book was the first birthday present his father gave him at age 7, then reveals his dream is to become a veterinarian, because owners often abandon or kill sick animals on the farm, which he is powerless to prevent. The young boy, smiling, declares he decided to become a vet. Alexandra ponders why the noble household lacks servants and has a plain interior, implying it explains the young boy's circumstances. The young boy recounts his father being scammed at age 3, his mother running away, and his father collapsing from illness and passing away when he was 7, leaving him to live with his grandfather. Alexandra asks if the young boy has any relatives to help, and the young boy replies he has an uncle in a monastery who can't help. The young boy, smiling, assures Alexandra that living with his grandfather is enough. The young boy clenches a book with a clutch sound, admitting that while everything else is fine, being picked on by other kids truly hurts. Alexandra tells the young boy to ignore those who hate him. Alexandra explains that bullies already decided they don't like the young boy and simply need an excuse to justify their actions. Alexandra touches the young boy's face, urging him to focus on treating his wound. Alexandra continues to apply medicine to the young boy's face, who looks up at him with wide, surprised eyes. The young boy asks Alexandra why he is so nice to him. Alexandra denies being nice. Then the young boy lists his past actions, playing with him last year, fixing his book all night, and now helping with medicine. To which Alexandra replies, it's only because the boy makes him worry. The young boy questions if Alexandra pities him, then asks what kind of orphan gets beaten up, prompting Alexandra to address him as Renee. Alexandra clarifies he doesn't pity Renee but cares because they are friends, with a soft shh sound, telling her not to shrink when similar things happen in Kaliba after the break. Renee stands on a balcony, gazing at the full moon and starry night sky. Renee is depicted in a golden dress and pearl headband, looking thoughtfully into the distance. Alexandra reassures Renee that he doesn't pity her, but cares because they're friends and promises to always be on her side. Alexandra asks Renee if she's on his side, to which she replies, yeah, as they sit together by the water. Renee, in her elegant dress, reflects that her first love began with that belief. This contract is made between Alexander, a 40-year-old alpha, and Renee, a 20-year-old omega, with the following clauses. 1. You will keep our marriage a secret from everyone. 2. In public, we will appear as a happily married couple. 3. There will be no physical contact between us, except when necessary for public appearances. 4. Alexander will pay for all costs of the orphanage and provide Renee with any support she needs. Renee looks pensive, holding a paper, revealing she also had hope, despite money being a major reason for the marriage. Renee hoped she could see Sasha from those days again, believing she might finally get an answer.
Alexandre smiles, asking why she suddenly cut ties with him at 16.
Alexandra holds a note that reads, "Don't ever come back, just go away," questioning why she came to hate him. Renee looks distraught, contemplating how Alexander had become a completely different person after 8 years. Alexandre looks distant, reflecting that he had become a completely different person. Alexandre tells Renee he is already supporting her materially by contract, questioning if he also needs to handle trivial matters, and asks if she thinks he's her real husband just because he's her legal one. Alexandra comments on Renee's naivete. Then the narration states that's when Renee realized they could never go back to how they were. The narration asserts they could never go back, with a shattered glass effect over young Renee and Alexandre. Lauren stares, shocked by Alexandra's demand for her to kneel and beg his wife. Alexandre smirks, glass in hand, stating he might show mercy out of pity for his wife. Lauren looks furious and distraught, her face trembling with a tremble sound. Lauren glances nervously at Alexandra, who is at the card table, as a crowd gathers. A man comments on Alexandra's demand for Lauren to kneel, finding it excessive, while Lauren considers letting it go since Count Seria will beg him daily and he hates being bothered. Alexandre, with a subtle smile, states he doesn't want to let it go. Renee looks surprised and concerned, gazing at Alexandra. Renee reflects that the Alexander she knows now would not humiliate or attack someone like Lauren, especially not over something that would make him the center of gossip. Renee clutches her gloved hands, a subtle clench sound, realizing Alexandra would not risk society gossip for such a reason. Renee on the balcony offers Alexandre anything if he wants it, stating she has nothing worthwhile to offer in this marriage anyway and can't deny him.
Alexandre touches Renee's chest, implying a personal request.
The maid confirms Alexandra specifically asked her to ensure proper care is taken. Renee and Alexandra walk together, and Renee muses that his actions confuse her, then he tells her to get some rest. Renee looks flustered, holding her chest, with a bead of sweat on her face. Alexandre smiles, holding a wine glass. Renee, in her golden dress, looks out contemplatively. Chibi Renee glares at Chibi Alexandra on the balcony, frustrated that he smiles without knowing her inner feelings. Renee looks exasperated, her eye twitching, thinking it's frustrating. A person wearing a golden dress smiles while being hugged by someone who says they missed her and asks why she has been avoiding them. The person in the golden dress tells Scarlett to let go so they can talk first, but the other person reassures her that no one is there and to hold as much as she wants. Renee looks distressed. Thinking the situation looks bad, she tells the other person to stop.
The woman in the purple dress thinks she should make a noise, as the woman in the gold dress watches the man in the dark suit. The woman in the purple dress quickly runs off, waving and saying, "See you later, darling," as the woman in the gold dress watches.
The man in the dark suit apologizes for the inappropriate scene, but the woman in the gold dress assures him it's fine, and she saw nothing. The woman in the gold dress, Renee, confirms she is Renee Hazelin, in charge of Hazelin Orphanage, and asks the man if she knows him.
The man, Laverus Ritri, introduces himself, stating he volunteered at the orphanage 4 years ago and now runs a travel agency.
Renee apologizes for not recognizing Mr. Ritri, then introduces herself as Renee Chandler.
Mr. Ritri apologizes for not recognizing her, having been abroad, and Renee assures him there's nothing to forgive.
Mr. Ritri asks to stay by Renee's side, thinking the young lady will grab him if he leaves, and Renee agrees, finding the moon too pretty to enjoy alone.
Mr. Ritri smiles, thanking Renee for her continued kindness, while Renee looks thoughtfully ahead.
Mr. Ritri smiles, thinking he wears his emotions on his face, unlike Alexander.
Mr. Ritri and Renee stand on the balcony, and he wonders why he is looking at Renee like that, as Renee says,
A chibi Mr. Ritri apologizes to Renee for staring too much. Mr. Ritri tells Renee that she reminds him of his little sister from the orphanage.
A chibi Mr. Ritri assures Renee it's not a pickup line, and offers to show her a picture, reaching into his coat with a rustle.
Mr. Rittrey shows Renee a photo of his sister in a nurse uniform, sent from a military hospital.
Renee agrees they look alike, but thinks his sister is prettier, surprising Mr. Rittrey.
Renee recalls her husband used to call her his ugly pig cousin when they were children.
Mr. Rittrey asks if they were childhood friends, surprised, and Renee explains their grandfathers were close. A young man with a clover in a field of flowers makes Renee wish she had pictures from back then, noting he was cuter. Mr. Rittrey struggles to imagine a young Mr. Chandler, while Renee describes him as mischievous. Alexander's eye is shown, reflecting his hurt. A man's gloved hand reaches for Renee in her golden dress.
Alexander embraces Renee, commenting that she is bad-mouthing her husband in front of another man. Alexander introduces himself to Leverus Rittrey, who returns the greeting.
Alexander tells Mr. Rittrey he won't recall this encounter, then asks him to leave for a moment as he needs to speak with his wife. Mr. Rittrey agrees.
Alexander thanks Renee for today, and Renee waves goodbye to Mr. Rittrey.
Alexander asks Renee what she wants to discuss, and she counters by asking if he has something to say.
Alexander thinks Renee is too confident after being caught bad-mouthing him, while Renee notes their unusual conversation. A young Alexander tells his pig cousin Renee not to fall off their bicycle, and Renee recalls him constantly using the nickname. A chibi Alexander claims he can't remember, and a chibi Renee finds it unbelievable.
Renee stands looking at Alexander, who has his back turned.
Alexander reveals he has something else he wanted to discuss, and Renee asks if it's with her. Renee looks surprised, beginning to speak.
Renee questions Alexander about his interaction with Lauren Haidt.
Alexander asks what she means, but Renee tells him not to play dumb, as he wouldn't act without a reason.
Alexander states it was nothing big, simply him fulfilling his duty, prompting Renee to question his words. Alexander reminds Renee she wouldn't lose anything from their contract marriage, explaining that her personal business with Lauren Haidt became a disadvantage due to the contract.
Renee reflects that insulting her is insulting the Kemble name, and she cannot sit back for the family's sake. Alexander stands over scattered coins and papers, which Renee perceives as his obsession with contracts and self-benefit, making her feel pathetic. Alexander smiles, holding a wine glass, thinking he might show mercy for Renee's sake, suggesting his direct involvement says everything.
Renee clasps her gloved hands, realizing her foolishness and wondering what she was even expecting. Renee apologizes to Alexander, stating Lauren Haidt was her personal issue, but she couldn't handle it alone and dragged him into it. Alexander questions her apology.
Renee asserts Lauren Haidt is her personal issue, and Alexander counters that he never saw it that way.
Alexander tells Renee he never thought of her as stupid, not as a child, and not now. Alexander stands with Renee, reassuring her that none of this is her fault. Alexander's shadow falls across the ground as he emphasizes that there is no reason for Renee to apologize for something that isn't her fault. Renee looks at Alexander, surprised and confused by his words. Alexander taps Renee, telling her to stop thinking useless things and to enjoy today.
Alexander gently holds Renee's hand.
Renee looks wide-eyed and shocked. Alexander calls out Renee's name, telling her to come over already. A smiling young man in a sailor-style shirt extends his hand towards the viewer.
Alexander, a man in a dark suit, stands reflecting. As narration notes, he still has the look of an 11-year-old boy.
Renee, in her golden dress, looks on thoughtfully, contemplating an expression. A young Alexander looks slightly surprised as Renee inwardly questions if he has no ulterior motives. Two hands, one larger and one smaller, clasp together, suggesting a connection. A young Alexander reaches for a laughing young Renee, as she believes he simply wants them to get along again. Renee, in her elegant golden dress, touches a pendant, her thoughts whispering Alexander's name. Renee and Alexander stand as silhouettes on a balcony, with her contemplating asking him something. Heavy rain pours down around Renee and Alexander on the balcony. Alexander urges Renee to come inside to avoid catching a cold, and she quietly agrees. Inside a grand hall, a man with a wine glass smiles at another man amidst a bustling and musical atmosphere. Alexander and Renee enter the lively hall, passing groups gathered around a gambling table. A man questions the title of the playing music, while another expresses surprise he doesn't know the famous piece. Alexander identifies the music as Summer Festival, reflecting on its meaning. Renee asks Alexander what is wrong as he turns and tells her to go home first, a soft hook sounding. Renee looks shocked, questioning Alexander's abrupt words. Renee shouts Alexander as her heeled foot swiftly moves after him, a quick tack sounding. Alexander firmly holds Renee's arm, identifying her as Renee Hazelin, and questions how she could leave when she's clearly not okay, a soft hook sounding. Renee looks at Alexander with a determined expression, asking if he didn't hear her. Alexander sternly tells Renee to stop being a bother and just go. Rain continues to fall heavily, creating a somber mood outside. Alexander's eye is shown reflecting his internal thought that he'd forgotten the way Renee always looked at him. Alexander questions Renee's irritating behavior, asking if she, an imposter, is trying to act like a real wife. Alexander emphasizes to Renee that no one else is present in the grand hallway. Alexander's intense gaze contrasts with Renee's watchful eye, as he thinks she should drop her pathetic act. A marriage contract box containing rings is displayed, with narration stating their connection is merely paper, a relationship that can never be real. Alexander looks in profile, remembering how he always reminded Renee of their non-real marriage, looking at her with disdain. Renee's face is shown in close-up, thinking that she always kept to the boundaries of being a fake. Renee gazes at her wedding portrait, reflecting on doing everything not to forget the true nature of their relationship. A hand tightly grips dark fabric, a sharp KWA sounding, as Renee questions who threw away all their effort just before their divorce. Renee and Alexander's silhouettes stand in a grand room, with Renee asking if he truly thinks of her as something to use and discard. Renee is shown in profile with a resolute expression, thinking, that's right. Alexander stands close to Renee, warning her not to overstep her bounds. Heavy rain falls outside a window, with Alexander looking up from inside, a distant expression. A gloved hand throws a clear bottle of pills, scattering them. Alexander's distressed eye is shown as more pills and a decorative plant fall. Glass shatters violently, scattering pieces of a broken vase and flowers, a loud zhang sounding. Alexander's feet are shown, still and resolute, a soft JJEUK sounding, while musical notes float below, implying reflection. Alexander's eye is filled with deep emotion as musical notes continue to float around him. The name Alexandra appears in a pool of red, accompanied by a dark thought. Alexander is choked by a tie, surrounded by red blood-like imagery, as internal voices accuse him of killing his mother and regretting meeting her, prompting him to shout, "Stop it!" Alexander gasps, looking up in distress, clutching his throat, a sharp gasp sounding. Alexander looks up in despair, while in the foreground, two bare feet are visible, seemingly hanging. Alexander looks up at a woman hanging as he whispers, "Mother." A web of tangled lines and shadows creates an abstract, unsettling transition. Renee lies in bed, looking tired, with a grand building visible outside her window, framed by green leaves. Renee lies in bed, looking pensive and slightly melancholic. Renee is sleeping peacefully in her bed, with a room clock in the background, as she thinks Alexander ended up sleeping at the office. Alexander, in a somber, faded filter, thinks he told Renee not to bother him and to leave first. Alexander and Renee stand close in a faded, somber image with rain effects. Renee questions Alexandra's irritating behavior, who then asks if she is trying to act like a real wife now. Alexandra leans into Renee, warning her not to overstep. Chibi Renee laments that Alexandra was always that way, even as a child, wondering why she is surprised now as a banging sounds. Alexandra, enchanting others, is then recalled for cruelly sending a note telling someone not to find him again because he is sick and tired of it. Renee, sitting on her bed, thinks this is truly the end, vowing not to be an idiot and fall for it again. A soft knock sounds on the door as someone asks to enter Renee's room, and she permits it. Josie Chamblay smiles gently, wearing a light green dress. Josie Chamblay expresses concern about Renee's movement, but Renee reassures her, saying a little exercise is good after a soft thud. Josie Chamblay kindly invites Renee to have tea with her, Josie Chamblay serves Renee lovely new lavender tea and shortcake, urging her to try it. Josie Chamblay asks Renee if something is wrong, and Renee expresses surprise at her sudden early visit. Josie Chamblay reveals her concern for Renee after seeing her distressed look post-banquet. Renee admits she couldn't stop thinking about yesterday, and Alexandre still hasn't returned home. Renee asks Josie Chamblay if she knows a piece called Summer Festival. Josie Chamblay questions Summer Festival, and Renee explains Alexandra seemed unwell at the banquet, possibly due to that musical piece. Josie Chamblay suggests Alexandra hasn't yet shared the story with Renee. Renee looks utterly shocked as Josie Chamblay reveals the truth. Blair took her own life. The narrative pauses, revealing the first person to find her was Alexandra is revealed to be the one who found Blair, standing distraught against a stormy window. A smiling Alexandre is questioned if he's going there again. Alexandre, startled, acknowledges he is going, as Blair watches from the doorway. Blair gently holds Alexandre's arm and suggests he invite the kid there instead. Alexandre stands holding his suitcase, Blair's hand still on his arm, looking thoughtful. Alexandre smiles, suggesting they could go together next year, convinced his mother would like that. Blair waves goodbye, calling out to Alexandre, inviting him to go together next year. Blair's hand touches the wall after a quick tap sounds as musical notes float below. Blair's hand remains still as musical notes transform into distorted, jagged lines, signaling a change in atmosphere. Blair's bare feet stand ominously as Alexandre enters the room, and distorted musical notes create a tense ambiance with a heavy thud. Alexandre looks distressed, questioning, "Mother," then shouts, "Mother," while kneeling and reaching for her dress. Alexandre desperately screams, "Mother!" at Blair, suspended in the air after a loud crash. The narration explains this was the day he returned from vacation, filled with various sounds. The scene depicts a stormy night over a grand building, filled with the sounds of rain, thunder, strange music, and crying. A newspaper reports Blair's death as an accident, an official statement made by the child's father to protect Blair's honor and the child. Alexandre is shown on his knees in despair, an unforgettable nightmare for the child, hinting at the tragic event. Josie Chamblay reveals that the song Summer Festival was playing in the room during the tragic event, visibly impacting Renee. Renee looks utterly distraught, her eyes wide with sorrow. Renee reflects on Alexandre's past trauma at age 16, realizing the song Summer Festival connects to his enduring wound, which is shown on his pained, blood-splattered face. Renee gazes out a rainy window, her face filled with sorrow, whispering Alexandre's name. Renee cries out, "Rain!" in shock, a series of emotional cries filling the air, a small dog standing by her side. The calico cat, Rain, tugs at fabric as Renee questions its whereabouts. Renee kneels in horror, asking the injured cat, Rain, what happened and where the kittens are. Renee again urgently asks Rain what happened as the cat pulls on her garment after a series of emotional cries. Renee calls out to Rain, asking where it is going, as both appear to be falling through the air. Renee gasps, looking shocked and out of breath. Renee crouches, calling to Rain, who stands on its hind legs at a closed door, realizing something important. Rain scratches at a closed door, revealed to be Nina Campbell's room, with soft scratching sounds. Renee walks away from Nina Campbell's door, deep in thought. Renee's worried expression is followed by cries and a soft thud as she ponders why Rain led her to Nina's room at this hour. Renee apologizes for the late hour, asking Nina to open her door for a moment after two soft thuds. Renee asks what's happening, while the red-haired woman angrily confronts Renee about making noise in the middle of the night. Renee looks bewildered by the confrontation. Melinda and Nina smile smugly as Melinda criticizes Renee's rude behavior, while Renee counters, questioning Melinda's nonsense. Renee glares at Melinda, telling her she's talking to Nina, and warns her not to overstep after a sharp gasp. Nina, with Melinda behind her, claims there is no cat in her room as she is allergic. Two men, Louis and Michel, discuss Nina's sudden cat allergy, while Nina claims there's no cat, and Renee argues that an allergy is more reason to check as the group stands outside a closed door. Rain, the cat, lies on the floor near Renee's feet, who states the cat slipped inside when the door was open and vows to take it out. Nina angrily shouts, there is nothing there, and that Renee's filthy cat is not in her room, pushing Renee back with a loud smack. Renee looks shocked as Alexandre, looking downcast, states he can't accept any promises because he already made one to his wife. Nina glares menacingly, thinking how much easier things would be if Renee wasn't present. Renee is shocked as Nina, with an angry expression and raised hand, yells that a wedding ring doesn't give her permission to treat others poorly, accompanied by a sharp smack. Renee looks forlorn and distressed, with her eyes closed in anguish. Renee looks worried, a pensive expression on her face. Alexandre holds back a distraught Nina, who is lunging at Renee, as Renee looks on with concern. Renee looks up at Alexandre, who has his arm around her comfortingly. Alexandre firmly grips Nina's wrist, an audible crunching sound accompanying his action. Alexandre smirks, asking Nina if she has always been so aggressive. The Chambler Corporation building stands under a rainy sky, a final technical report for the M21 motor, detailing its engine specifications and top speed. Alexandre sits at his desk while Michel Ankes, his secretary, stands by, discussing the motor show schedule. Alexandre takes a drink, a pensive expression on his face. Alexandre provocatively questions why Renee is irritating, calling her a fake wife, and instructing her to act like an object faithful to her purpose, warning her not to overstep her bounds. Renee stands dressed elegantly, looking downcast and thoughtful. Renee smiles subtly, acknowledging a dramatic revelation. Alexandre questions Michel Ankes's unexpected comment. Then Michel, named as Alexandre's secretary, tells him to go home and get at least 10 hours of sleep. Alexandre holds a glass, questioning Michel Ankes's random comment and if he tripped on the stairs. Michel Ankes insists Alexandre go home today, as his current condition will affect his work. Michel Ankes smiles, threatening to go on strike immediately if Alexandre doesn't comply. Alexandre calls Michel Ankes insane, who retorts that no one stays sane working under a crazy boss. Alexandre chuckles to himself, tapping his hand on the desk in his office. Alexandre, seen through a rain-streaked window, ponders how Michel Ankes knew he couldn't manage without his secretaries, and used it to threaten him. A car arrives at the mansion during heavy rain, as a voice confirms their arrival, and another suggests staying the night, worried about slippery roads. Alexandre tells Gabriel to prepare a room for Michel as he heads straight upstairs. Alexandre, wiping his face with a cloth, is stopped by Gabriel, who begins to speak about Renee. Alexandre's intense blue eye is shown, as Nina's angry voice screams that a wedding ring doesn't give Renee the right to treat her this way. Nina screams, lunging at Renee with a furious expression. Nina, still held by Alexandre, is questioned about what is happening. Alexandre asks Nina if she always treated Renee like a deranged woman, questioning if she understands his question. Nina attempts to explain, referring to Renee as this woman, and Alexandre calmly echoes, "This woman?" Alexandre embraces Renee, telling Nina that if she had stayed quiet, he would have let her comfortably leech off them, but her behavior has changed his mind. Nina's wrist is grabbed tightly, and she cries out in pain. Alexandre sternly warns Nina not to let his anger surpass any guilt he feels, advising her to think twice before involving the Chambler name with her Anyashas. Alexandre threatens Nina, stating she'll never enter the Chambler estate again, and her mother won't be able to paw at her boy toys with jewel-covered fingers, showing an image of her mother with men and a man engulfed in flames. A hand ignites a gold lighter, producing a bright flame. Nina looks stunned, questioning boy toys and wondering how much Alexandre knows. Alexandre takes Renee's hand, telling her, "Let's go." Renee struggles, crying out that her cats are inside. Melinda holds Nina, who shouts that Renee is talking nonsense. Alexandre explains, with a slight smile, that Rain ran inside when the door opened, and since the kittens haven't been seen all day, Rain is likely looking for them. Nina, supported by Melinda, angrily questions if Renee expects them to search her room in the middle of the night for such a petty reason. Renee, determined, states she will just find Rain and leave, forcefully pushing past Nina. Renee rushes into the room, calling out, "Rain," while Nina and Melinda watch in surprise. Alexandre holds Nina back, assuring her he'll only take a quick look, as Renee cries out for Rain inside the room. Renee holds Rain, frantically asking where the babies are, as loud meows fill the air. 3 tiny kittens cry out from inside a basket, soaked by the rain. Renee screams in horror, seeing the kittens drenched and unprotected. Renee kneels, distressed, as Melinda tells Nina that she's never seen this before, while Nina looks smugly away. Alexandre tells Renee, who is visibly wet, to stay put as he will handle it. Renee, looking shocked, watches Alexandre remove his jacket and rush forward. Alexandre reaches through a broken window during the rain, pulling out 2 soaked kittens, with the rain pouring down. Alexandre strains to pull something from the broken window as Renee watches from below. Alexandre holds a drenched cat, his face streaked with rain, looking worried. Alexandre calls out to Renee to catch the third kitten, which he throws to her. Renee, holding a kitten, looks up at Alexandre, questioning why he's helping after speaking so harshly, feeling confused by his actions. Renee, looking confused and pensive, questions Alexandre's true intentions, stating his actions only confuse her more. Alexandre, soaked and serious, states, "This is the last kitten." Alexandre reaches out his hand, and a small kitten is seen being passed with a shining effect. Alexandre's hand reaches out while a shattering sound is heard, indicating more glass breaking as a hand is shown reaching out. Renee, with wide, terrified eyes, holds onto the broken window frame, looking down into the rain. Renee screams Sasha's name during the downpour as the scene fades to be continued. The scene shows a bright, ethereal light over glistening water with soft light sounds. Renee, holding a bread roll, asks someone what they are looking at. Renee smiles slyly, offering a bite of the bread roll. A close-up shows Alexandre's happy expression, his eyes closed. Renee and Alexandre share a tender kiss on the beach, bathed in sparkling light. Alexandre kisses Renee on the beach, declaring they are at the age where they can kiss now. Alexandre holds a bread roll, telling Renee that since she kissed him, she can't do it with anyone else, prompting her to question his words. Renee angrily asks who said so, then stuffs the bread roll into Alexandre's mouth, who cries out in surprise. Renee runs away, declaring she will kiss many other people, leaving Alexandre shouting what, "Hey," in dismay. Renee smiles mischievously, a triumphant glint in her eye. Alexandre chuckles, looking pleased, despite having been playfully teased. An ominous red thought bubble warns Alexandre to stop, then asks if he was happy leaving his mother all alone. Alexandre's eye looks pained as a voice asks why he didn't stay by his mother's side, with soft crying sounds. Alexandre sits before his mother's coffin, a voice accusing him of abandoning her. An angry red thought bubble curses Alexandre as an ungrateful brat as he looks distressed. Alexandre is shown at a coffin, while a voice accuses him of consuming his mother and now his father, urging him to look at what he's done. Amidst a raging fire, voices frantically demand water, declare the Lord hurt, and scream that the master is still inside, then cry out, "Master!" A blazing mansion burns furiously as Alexandre hears an accusatory voice declare, "You killed them." Alexandre kneels on the ground in despair, a voice shouting that he devoured them all. Alexandre clutches his head in anguish, admitting it's his fault and that everything happened because of him. Alexandre looks up, confused, hearing Renee, and then mutters Sasha. A distressed Renee is shown, urging Sasha to open his eyes and then screaming his name, begging him to open them. Renee looks distraught, tears in her eyes, as she hears her name whispered. A man's hand reaches out, expressing he never wanted to see that expression or hurt her. A man's gloved hand gently touches Renee's tear-streaked face, as a thought bubble indicates he needed to fix things before she got hurt further. Alexandre comforts a crying Renee, wiping her tears away. From an overhead view, Alexandre and another man, Sasha, sit on a bed as Renee stands beside them. Gabriel enters the room, carrying water and medicine, and Renee thanks him. Gabriel informs Renee that the man is still catching up on lost sleep and shows no sign of waking. Michel Enke screams for a doctor, while another man desperately urges Alexandre to wake up, as Renee looks on in distress in the pouring rain. Renee cries out Sasha's name twice, clutching a small kitten close. The man covers his face in anguish, a soft chuckle escaping him. Renee looks at a sleeping Alexandre, as she is told he has no major injuries and they should just watch him for now. Gabriel smiles, reassuring Renee not to worry. Chibi Gabriel reveals that Alexandre has always been robust, often falling from trees, surprising Chibi Renee. Gabriel encourages Renee to rest, with a soft tapping sound, as she observes Alexandre from afar. Renee gently touches Alexandre's face, a knowing smile gracing her lips. Renee, looking down at Alexandre on the bed, states they have much to discuss. Alexandre's hand reaches out, firmly grasping Renee's arm. Alexandre looks pensive as a voice asks why he didn't reply to letters. With a soft thud, Renee's hands clench, a pained expression on her face. Renee, with tears in her eyes, questions why Alexandre suddenly started to hate her. Renee wonders if Alexandre's pain at the time caused his hatred as he looks up from the bed. Alexandre stands over Renee, whose face is buried in her arms on a table, his hand resting on her back. Alexandra kneels before Renee, calling her name. Alexandra confesses he selfishly borrowed Renee because he needed her, wanting to send her back before she became unhappier or he grew greedier. Alexandra gently touches Renee's hand, thinking he should have sent her back to her beautiful home sooner. A gray cat watches from the foot of the bed as Alexandra and Renee interact, another man asleep. A grand mansion stands under a starlit night sky with soft tapping sounds. Andrea walks down a hallway, carrying a tray with jewelry. Andrea greets another maid, asking, "What is it?" after a soft ringing sound. Andrea presents a pearl necklace and white gloves on a golden tray, asking the maid if she recognizes them, to which the maid replies they belong to Milady. Several maids are seen in a room as Andrea explains the items were found in Melinda's room yesterday. Andrea, with a sly smile, questions how Melinda could have obtained the items from the master's chambers, but the maid nervously denies knowing. Andrea, extending her hand, requests the key to the bedchamber. The maid looks shocked and confused, her hands clasped nervously. Andrea takes the ornate key, declaring she will now inspect every servant's room. Andrea holds the key in the tray, her expression firm and knowing. The maid looks terrified as a thought bubble declares all servants forbidden from the couple's bedchamber. Alexandre lies in bed, eyes closed, as sunlight streams through a window and soft rustling sounds are heard. Alexandre stirs in bed, shielding his eyes with a hand. Alexandre's eyes open wide, then he sits up with a soft thud, confused, questioning if he has returned, implying a dream. Alexandre wakes up, seeing Renee beside him, pondering if it was a dream. Alexandra looks thoughtful, wondering what kind of dream that was. Alexandra looks at a small, gray kitten sitting on the bed, extending his hand. Alexandra smiles, gently stroking the kitten and playfully teasing it about being sturdier than him, with soft purring. Alexandre watches the kitten climb on the bed, playfully asking where it's going, as a soft meow sounds. Alexandra looks closely at the kitten, surprised by its distinctive blue eyes. Gabriel enters the room, announcing that Alexandre, the master, has awakened. Gabriel smiles, expressing relief that Alexandre is awake, and asks if he feels any discomfort. Alexandre asks how many days he's been asleep, and Gabriel informs him it's been about 3.5 days, as he presents a tray. Alexandre, with the kitten on his chest, requests newspapers, piled up letters, and some whiskey. Gabriel, holding a tray, questions Alexandre's request for whiskey immediately upon waking, as Alexandre covers his eyes. Alexandre sighs, holding the kitten, and acknowledges Gabriel's concern. Renee stands at the doorway shouting, "Madam!" looking distraught as Alexandre exhales. Renee, looking shocked, questions Alexandre's request for alcohol after only 3 days of waking, while he looks annoyed. Renee places her hand on Alexandre's forehead, confirming his fever has subsided, and he agrees. Renee sternly tells Alexandre that until the doctor permits it, he can have no alcohol or smoking, to which he sighs and calls her Renee. Renee finishes her sentence, affectionately calling Alexandra "my dear." Alexandre, looking troubled, wonders if Renee is acting above her station, or if she would at least pretend to be sorry if she'd wounded someone's heart. Alexandre looks at Renee, a troubled expression on his face, wondering if she's still acting above her station. Alexandre rubs his temple, sighing, and agrees to apologize, but with a condition. Renee looks at Alexandra, awaiting his condition. Alexandre demands compensation for saving Renee's precious cats as a kitten meows. Sunlight illuminates a room, revealing a framed wedding portrait. Alexander, in bed, requests Renee buy him a meal outside. Renee smiles subtly, bathed in a soft glow. Alexandre offers a gentle, serene smile. A letter from Renee's uncle praises her for Whitehall's thriving orphanage, now with about 30 children. The letter reassures Renee that the orphanage is still manageable. Renee's uncle requests she take in an intelligent, capable child needing eye treatment. The letter asks Renee to care for Gordon, expressing her uncle's love with a soft clack. Renee expresses frustration, asking her uncle how he could carelessly send a child. Gordon apologizes, explaining he read the letter too late, after a crunching sound. Gordon Rails is introduced, wearing an eye patch. Renee asks Gordon about his eye injury. Gordon hesitates, beginning to explain. Gordon recalls seeing outsiders entering the girls' dormitory one night. Gordon recounts following men, fighting them off, and his eye being struck. Gordon grimaces, struck by a punch. Gordon dismisses his injury as merely bad luck. Renee sits at her desk, observing Gordon. Renee's expression is pensive, as a thought notes his words as a relief. Gordon looks down, adjusting his cap. Renee thinks she understands Gordon's character from his words. Renee smiles confidently, reviewing papers. Gordon questions Renee's statement, and Renee reiterates her confusion. Renee is shocked to realize her uncle sent Gordon with no arrangements at all. After a shiver, Felder Hazel needs more time to settle in Kaliba. Renee worries if she can endure the orphanage's reckless management, red liquid dripping. Gordon looks worried and apologetic. Renee sighs heavily. Renee tells her uncle not to worry too much. Renee confidently suggests they look for a house together. Someone questions if Renee kicked Nina out. Gabriel explains Renee arranged a hotel for Nina and Melinda. Gabriel reveals Nina slapped Renee. Alexandra looks shocked, questioning the news. Nina furiously questions who Renee is to kick her out. Renee calmly tells Nina the outcome won't change, threatening to involve the police. Renee warns Nina she can't punish her for cat abuse, but will for stealing, as a maid stammers in protest. Melinda urges the maids to say goodbye. Nina raises her hand aggressively. Renee blocks Nina's attack with a loud smack, as Gabriel and the maid observe. Renee slaps Nina, a loud smack sounding, shocking the maids. Nina stammers in shock, clutching her cheek. Renee asserts that one should expect retaliation when hitting someone. Nina yells Renee's maiden name, while Renee counters with her married name. Renee asserts her identity as Renee Chambler, demanding Nina show respect. Nina looks distressed, clutching her dress. Gabriel observes Renee's unexpected fierce side. Alexandra smirks, recalling Renee's fiery temper from childhood. Josie praises Renee for handling her role well despite the danger. Alexandre sits, asking Josie to compile a list of Renee's belongings Melinda Gosling touched. Gabriel confirms the friend is a longtime friend of the Admiral and Matriarch, while Alexandra questions if he's Grandma's friend too. Gabriel explains the Matriarch's popular salon and surprising connections, showing a scene of people toasting with wine. Alexandra and Josie talk with narration stating, Josie's attendance once determined the scale of social gatherings. Josie was a central figure close to the Queen, but could no longer leave the mansion. Alexandre, looking determined, runs through a dark cave holding a lantern. Alexandra departs, and Josie questions if he's already leaving. Josie tells Alexandre that his safety is all that matters, urging him to take care of his health. Alexandre's legs are shown walking away, a confident stride. A box of colorful wrapped candies and folded paper is displayed. Alexandre looks at the box of candy, a questioning expression on his face. Alexandra reads a note from Renee, explaining she prepared whiskey-flavored candy for him instead of alcohol or cigarettes. Gabriel approaches Alexandra, who is holding Renee's note, as soft tapping sounds. Alexandra laughs, smiling widely as he reads Renee's note. Gabriel smiles discreetly as Alexandra laughs. The main road of Bookstore Street is bustling, with newspaper companies nearby. Renee gestures, acknowledging her presence with Gordon. Gordon looks surprised, admitting it's his first time seeing so many cars. Renee smiles, stating everything was new to her when she first arrived in Kaliva. Renee and Gordon's hands are shown, with Renee pointing to an address on a piece of paper. Renee is startled by a sudden bump, crying out, "Oh!" As someone touches her arm, Renee apologizes, saying it's her fault, as a man looks at her. A man, dressed in a suit, questions, "Mrs. Chambler?" The man smiles warmly, greeting Renee. The man and Renee exchange greetings, Renee acknowledging it's nice to see him, as he offers her a paper. The man bows to Renee, as she introduces him to Gordon, and Gordon bows slightly. The man, surprised, realizes the CEO is looking for an employee's residence. Renee explains her company, Polder Hazel, was founded for the children of the Heiselin orphanage, as Gordon adjusts his cap. Renee smiles broadly, surrounded by bright flowers. The man, surprised, listens to Renee. Renee smiles, stating Gordon will be an excellent employee and he agrees to do his best. The man compliments Renee, calling her actions truly wonderful. Renee looks surprised, questioning his words. The man smiles, thanking Renee for her positive view. The man, smiling, points, offering a nearby vacant staff residence if it's acceptable. Renee, surprised, politely declines the offer, stating they couldn't possibly impose. The man reassures Renee not to feel burdened, expressing his selfish desire to contribute to her cause and become a wonderful person like her. Renee smiles, touched by his words. The man, Gordon, and Renee walk together, as Renee and the man look at each other. The man, smiling, invites them to look, since it's close by. The three walk together, Renee in the middle. A loud camera click sounds as Renee looks towards the man, who has his arm around her. Another camera click sounds, focusing on Renee's smiling face. A man uses an old-fashioned camera to photograph Renee, Gordon, and the man walking by. Renee works diligently at her desk, surrounded by papers. A chandelier hangs above. Renee, looking worried, thinks about the situation. A quill drips ink onto a report, as Renee wonders if there's no way to stabilize the company until the divorce. Renee is surprised to see Alexandre, who smiles at her. Renee questions Alexandre's presence late at night, and he replies he came to take her to bed out of indignation, since she banned him from work but works late herself. Renee, with a worried expression, asks if Alexandre's presence is about the orphanage. Renee looks worried, realizing this isn't a matter of pride. Alexandre stands beside a luxurious car, recognized as a successful businessman. Alexandre, with a serious expression, tells President Kemble there's something he'd like to ask. Renee looks anxious, a bead of sweat on her temple. Alexandre stands over Renee, asking what she would do in his position. Alexandre states he didn't expect such a question but will answer because it's from President Hazelin. Alexandre tells Renee that to win more, she must expand the board. Alexandre states just waiting for more sales isn't his way, questioning what comes after expanding from Whitehall to Kaliba. Renee looks surprised, pondering expand the market. Renee walks holding a lantern, thinking she's only focused on Kaliba, but now must consider what comes next. Alexandre smiles, suggesting that finding investors to expand the board shouldn't be difficult. Alexandre looks at Renee, questioning her with a what. Renee states she'll be divorcing soon and can't always expect Kemble's support. Renee smiles determinedly, deciding she needs to find a new way, with a gentle tap. Alexandre leans in, telling Renee she doesn't have to cut things off so sharply, and offers to support the orphanage as needed. Alexandre looks intently at Renee, questioning, why? Renee reminds Alexandre they are divorcing, questioning why he would support Hazelin Orphanage. Renee sits, contemplating Alexandre's offer. Alexandre smiles slyly, claiming he pretended to avenge her only to remind her of her place as a fake wife. Alexandre looks troubled, acknowledging Renee risked her life to save his cats. Renee looks at the divorce papers, questioning Alexandre's true intentions and how to interpret his contradictory actions. Alexandre, with a slight smile, states he only did what he wanted because Lauren Height's actions and Nina's schemes didn't sit well with him. Alexandre tells Renee that supporting the orphanage isn't significant money to him, stating he can and will, asking if that's enough. Renee looks at Alexandre, a worried expression on her face, questioning why he abandoned her, left her with nothing, and never told her he returned. Alexandre looks away, stating he just needed a wife, that's all, with a quick turn. Renee's feet are shown, as a thought bubble reveals Alexandre always appears unexpectedly. Renee stands in a grand hall, as Alexandre walks away, stating he turns away when she tries to approach. Alexandre walks further away, as Renee questions why he makes her expect something, and shakes her, then shouts, "Wait!" grabbing his arm. Renee, holding onto Alexandre, shouts that he could have chosen anyone else. Alexandre's intense eye is shown, as the thought bubble wonders if he actually wanted to see her. A happy young girl, then a mischievous Renee with red eyes, then a smiling Renee are shown in a series of past memories. A dark, ominous thought bubble screams, "You devoured everything." Renee looks distraught, tears in her eyes. Renee grabs Alexandre's arm, who looks down at her. Renee looks shocked, questioning what, after a gasp. Alexandre's hand rests on Renee's, admitting he didn't have the courage to apologize for the past, with a soft crunch. Alexandre is shown pulling Renee close, confessing he used the pathetic excuse of marriage to bring her back. Renee looks surprised, her eyes wide with shock. Alexandre looks at Renee, questioning why it matters so much. Alexandre states they are not the same as before, and the past isn't important anymore, asking if it's really that crucial. Renee looks at Alexandre, calling him contradictory and pointing out she only asked the obvious. Alexandre pins Renee to the desk, asking if she's still curious about him after hearing such things. Alexandre looks down at Renee, questioning if she actually loves him, his eyes glowing. Alexandre leans in, promising to reveal what he's interested in now, things a bumpkin from Whitehall would never know, as Renee looks shocked. Alexandre kisses Renee passionately on the desk. Alexandre and Renee share a close-up kiss. Renee cries out, "Wait, don't!" with a soft smack, then shouts, "Don't!" Alexandre, with a playful smirk, questions why not, stating he's about to teach her what she's dying to know, as Renee calls him a bastard. Renee shouts, asking why he avoids it if it's nothing, urging him to answer. Alexandre covers his face, yelling he doesn't want to answer, a frustrated bang sounding, as Renee looks on intently. Alexandre embraces Renee, who looks distressed, thinking this isn't a matter of pride. Close-ups show Alexandre's tearful eye, then his closed eye, revealing profound sadness. Renee and Alexandre share a passionate kiss, seen through a sunlit window. Renee smiles coyly, stating she knows enough if it's only this. Renee walks away from Alexandre's desk, leaving him watching her depart. Alexandre slams his fist on the desk, a loud clang sounding, thinking about what she knows. Alexandre looks contemplative, tapping his chin as a red-haired woman is shown in a small inset. A collage of various manhwa characters urges viewers to read more chapters online. 2 pairs of feet walk on a stone path, with soft clacking sounds. Renee walks with a maid across a sunlit garden bridge. Renee and the maid stand in a vibrant garden, smiling. Renee and other women converse over tea in an ornate conservatory, attended by a maid. Mary Katharina Alice Hendrick, the Queen of Curious, is formally introduced, regally dressed and holding a teacup. Renee bows deeply to the Queen, thanking her for her concern. Renee converses with the Queen at a table, a maid standing nearby. The Queen smiles, extending her gloved hand to Renee. Archie Rhodes Maximut, the Princess of Wylus, is introduced, expressing pleasure in meeting Mrs. Kemble and complimenting her beauty. Renee expresses her honor and calls the princess too kind. Renee and the princess shake hands across the table, a gentle tap and rustle sounding, Renee looking surprised. The princess smiles radiantly, her eyes sparkling. Renee recalls starting to promote Pelder Hazel soap, adding oils and packaging, then gifting tailored soaps to distinguished guests. Renee confirms she remembers the topic, speaking to Her Highness. A woman, covered in blankets, recalls that she and her sister always suffered from skin problems, while 2 maids look on. The princess holds Renee's hand across the table, smiling warmly. A close-up shows the princess's striking blue eyes. Renee smiles, offering to gift the soap if needed. The princess holds Renee's hand, promising all necessary support. Renee looks surprised, questioning, "Pardon." Renee explains she needs funds she can procure without delay and suggests a store in Felis, believing Pelder Hazel soap would be popular there. Chibi Renee blushes, thinking she got too excited, while Chibi Princess smiles. The Queen smiles, welcoming the global spread of their country's products. Renee sits, contemplating the advice given, a serious expression on her face. Renee's feet clack on the floor as she walks, thinking about expanding her business to another country. Alexandre sits beside Renee, advising her to raise the stakes and sell in more markets if she wants to win more. Chibi Renee is supported by Chibi Princess, who offers full support, making Renee think she wouldn't need Alexandre's help. "Are you in love?" Alexandre passionately kisses Renee on the desk. Chibi Renee clutches her head, screaming at herself to stop thinking. Renee blushes, hands to her face, looking flustered. Renee stands in front of Kemble Company, wondering when she arrived. Renee ponders if she unconsciously walked there due to yesterday's events. Renee gasps, recognizing Alexandre's car with a loud crash. Chibi Renee looks shocked. Renee quickly ducks behind a large map, hoping to avoid Alexandra, as footsteps sound. 2 men stand by Alexandra's car, one announcing their arrival, the other about to speak. Renee anxiously wishes for them to leave quickly. Alexandra stands with 2 men, as Renee hides, looking towards him. Alexandra looks around, then questions if something is wrong. Alexandre states he just thought his wife was nearby, which surprises the other man. Renee hides behind a paper, wondering how Alexandra knew and if he saw her. Renee smiles slyly, a playful expression on her face. Renee holds Alexandre, who looks pained, as she ponders that this isn't a matter of pride. Close-up of Alexandra's tearful blue eye, then his closed eye, revealing deep sorrow. Renee and Alexandre share a passionate kiss, observed through a window. Renee smiles, stating she knows enough about what happened. Renee walks towards a doorway, leaving Alexandre sitting at his desk. Alexandre clenches his fist on the desk, a loud clang sounding. Alexandra looks thoughtful, touching his chin as he reflects on his words. The chapter concludes with a promotional image. 2 pairs of feet walk briskly on a stone path, soft clacks echoing. Renee walks with a maid across a sunlit garden bridge. Renee and a maid stand in a beautiful garden setting, Renee and two women sit for tea in an ornate conservatory, attended by a maid. Mary Katerina Alice Hendrick, the Queen of Curious, is formally introduced in regal attire. Renee bows graciously, thanking the Queen for her concern. Renee and the Queen share a moment, conversing over tea. The Queen smiles, extending a gloved hand to Renee. Archie Rhodes Maximute, the Princess of Wilis, expresses her pleasure and compliments Renee's beauty. Renee calls the princess too kind, expressing her honor to meet her. Renee and the princess shake hands across the table, with soft tapping and rustling sounds. The princess smiles radiantly, her eyes sparkling. Renee recalls promoting Pelder Hazel soap, adding fragrant oils, and gifting tailored soaps to esteemed guests. Renee smiles, confirming she remembers the topic, speaking to the princess. A flashback shows a distressed woman in bed, suffering from skin problems, attended by two maids. The princess holds Renee's hand, smiling warmly across the table. A close-up shows the princess's captivating blue eyes. Renee smiles, offering to gift her soap if needed. The princess takes Renee's hand, promising all necessary support. Renee looks surprised, questioning, pardon. Renee explains her need for quick funds and proposes opening a store in Phyllis, confident Pelder Hazel soap will be popular there. Chibi Renee blushes, thinking she got a little too excited. The Queen welcomes the expansion of their country's products globally. Renee sits pensively, considering her options. Renee's heels tap as she walks, contemplating expanding her business to another country. Alexandre advises Renee to raise the stakes and sell in more markets if she wants to win more. Chibi Renee receives support from the Chibi Princess, thinking she wouldn't need Alexandre's help now. A hazy, emotional overlay questions if someone is in love. Alexandra passionately kisses Renee, who is lying on the desk. Chibi Renee screams at herself, frustrated, to stop thinking. Renee blushes, covering her face, looking flustered. Renee stands before Kemble Co., wondering how she got there. Renee speculates she unconsciously walked there due to yesterday's events. Renee gasps, recognizing Alexandra's car parked outside, with a small, shocked Chibi Renee. Renee quickly hides behind a large paper map, hoping to avoid Alexandra. Two men stand by Alexandra's car, one announcing their arrival. Renee anxiously wishes for them to depart quickly. Alexandra stands with two men, while Renee hides, peering at him. Alexandre looks around, questioning if something is amiss. Alexandre tells the man he just thought his wife was nearby, prompting a surprised response. Renee hides behind a paper, wondering how Alexandra knew she was there and if he saw her. Renee smiles slyly, a playful expression on her face. Renee, clutching her chest, thinks she should hurry home, then gasps. Renee adjusts her shoe, a worried expression on her face. Renee's heels clack as she walks, a worried expression shown. Renee regrets sending the driver away, wishing she had taken the car. The bright sky is filled with clouds, and soft ha and ah sounds indicate contemplation. Renee gasps in shock as a man roughly shoves her, reaching for her bag. Renee cries out, "Wait!" struggling against the man grabbing her bag. Renee screams, "My bag! A thief!" in distress. Renee reaches out, screaming for help as the thief runs away. Renee sinks to the ground, looking defeated, her shoes scattered around with light rustling sounds. The thief runs through the city streets as Renee thinks, no, not that bag. A beautifully adorned woman with blue eyes smiles confidently. A smiling man, then a worried Renee, are shown in quick succession. Renee looks distraught, pleading, "Please, someone," agonizing over a lost letter given directly by Her Majesty. A man tells Renee to stay put as he goes after the thief, a determined expression on his face. With a whoosh sound, Renee watches, exhaling, as the man chases the thief through the city, wondering who he is. Renee is left alone, her shoes off, regretting her foolish thoughts. Renee looks distraught, tears in her eyes, thinking about her foolishness. Renee's bare feet tap on the ground as she thinks about getting her bag back. A man's hand holds a stylish brown handbag. A man returns Renee's bag, making her question Mr. Luttrell with a gasp. Mr. Littrey smiles, beads of sweat on his face. Mr. Littrey points out a woman, indicating they need to get her bag. A thought bubble reveals the plan to get the woman's bag, as Renee looks on. A voice instructs to hand over the key and money once the bag is obtained. A man grapples with Mr. Littrey, who looks surprised there was no mention of such a strong opponent. Mr. Leary wince in pain, cursing the unknown bastard. A hand pulls an ornate key from a bag with a quick tug, followed by a loud wrenching sound. Mr. Lantry, with a relieved smile, confirms he caught the thief as police officers approach. Mr. Littrey tells the police to stay still as they apprehend the thief. Mr. Littrey tells one officer to take the thief, while another is directed to the victim with a soft rustle. A key clatters on the ground with a soft jingling sound, then a hand picks it up. A woman in a hat watches as police officers lead the apprehended thief away. Mr. Littrey looks surprised, asking Renee how she got there, while Renee looks shocked. A police officer reassures Mr. Littrey that Renee is fine. Renee tells the police officer they were so fast she wouldn't have caught the thieves without them. Mr. Latry smiles, stating nothing is missing and asking if anything is gone, with a gentle touch to his chin. Mr. Leary smiles, reassuring Renee that as long as the bag is safe, he's fine, and she thanks him. Mr. Littrey thinks it's a relief if they don't have to go to the police station, then considers going to his house instead. Mr. Littrey asks Mrs. Kemble to wait for a moment as a police officer watches. Renee responds with a simple yes. A tall clock tower overlooks a charming city street, capturing the essence of the location. Mr. Littrey places new shoes on Renee's feet, saying he bought them by eye and will exchange them if uncomfortable, as Renee looks down. Renee smiles, asking Mr. Littrey where he got the new shoes, who replies there was a women's shoe store nearby. Renee and Mr. Littrey sit on a bench. He adjusts her shoe. Renee thanks Mr. Littrey profusely, promising to repay him, but he insists he only did what a gentleman should. Mr. Leary, looking concerned, offers to escort Renee home, as she replies, the officer already contacted the mansion. Mr. Littrey preens, inviting Renee to look around their travel agency while she waits. Renee looks surprised, questioning, the travel agency? A vibrant sunset casts a warm glow over a grand building, creating a beautiful atmosphere. Renee affectionately cuddles a small gray kitten, winking playfully. Renee looks surprised, holding the kitten, noticing her bandaged foot. Her bandaged feet are visible as Renee silently wonders who helped her. Renee, tearful, clutches the kitten and her bandaged foot, realizing no one knew of her injury. Alexandra bandages Renee's foot, his thought bubble questioning if the traumatic event wasn't a dream. Gabriel enters Renee's sunlit room with a wheelchair, greeting her awake. Gabriel explains the master sent the wheelchair due to Renee's injury. Renee looks completely shocked by the unexpected gesture. Gabriel urges Renee to use the wheelchair until her injury fully heals. Renee protests, claiming she was fine yesterday, but Gabriel reveals the master left instructions for her injury care. Renee, frustrated, thinks Alexandre should have shown his face if truly worried. Renee recognizes the jar of candy as the one she gave Alexandra. Renee tightly grips the candy jar, her hands clenching. Alexandra, in thought, questions the importance of the past, stating things are different now. Renee sits on the floor near her bed, reaching for the candy as Gabriel watches. Gabriel thoughtfully agrees, deciding to leave the wheelchair just in case. Renee entrusts Gabriel with a sealed envelope, and he promises careful handling. Gabriel assures Renee her meals will be brought to her, urging her to rest. Renee sits in bed, pensively holding the jar of candy. Hands gently take a piece of candy from the jar. Renee brings a piece of candy to her mouth. Because I'm on your side, no matter what. Memories surface. Since you kissed me, you can't kiss anyone else now, and Renee, you're the prettiest. Harsh words echo. Don't come looking for me again, and get lost, I'm sick of it, and if you're an object, then act like one. A yellow candy breaks with a crisp sound, scattering into pieces. Renee lets out a soft gasp. Overwhelmed, Renee sits on the bed, facing her wedding portrait, longing to stop being swayed by him. A knocking sounds before a voice bids come in, and the maid, Rosa, greets someone, saying, "It's been a while." The woman in the purple dress smirks, complaining she personally delivered a key due to someone's whining. The smirking woman questions what her visitor has brought for her. Rosa nervously offers an envelope, asking about her mother, while the stern woman says it depends on what's inside. Rosa hands over the envelope to the seated woman, suggesting it will be useful, as a bloody backdrop foreshadows danger. The woman contemplates the envelope. A subtle hum. Hands open the envelope with a flinch, revealing papers that shock the woman in the purple dress. The woman in the purple dress laughs maniacally, clutching the revealed papers. The woman continues to laugh triumphantly in the room. Rosa looks distressed and fearful, her hands clasped nervously. The woman in purple smirks, praising Rosa for her great service. The malevolent woman holds a contract naming Renee Hazelin, then questions if that was all. A man reflects in black and white, realizing future national power lies in new industries. Man confidently predicts the nation's future in aviation and automobile industries. Kemble unveils new generous models, receiving hundreds of thousands of pre-orders for the motor show, with Queen Mary's full support. The Kemble Motor Show is announced as the largest in history, revealing ambitions for commercializing automobiles across all of Leverus. Bereaved families protest daily against dangerous automobiles, questioning the new road revolution. Dr. Tupez, Alexandra's personal physician, is formally introduced, holding medical instruments. Dr. Tupes scolds an exhausted Alexandra for working days and nights without sleep. Alexandra, looking weary, agrees to be careful, telling his doctor to quiet down. Alexandra shifts focus, asking Dr. Tupes about his wife's injury and if he has seen her. Dr. Tupes reassures Alexander about Mrs. Kemble's injuries, privately deeming the wheelchair excessive. Mrs. Kemble tells Dr. Tupes she's worried about Mr. Kemble and asked him to check on Alexandra regularly, a revelation met with Alexandra's intense gaze. Dr. Tupes urges Alexandra to drink in moderation if he won't leave his worrying wife alone. Alexandra's hands reach for headache medicine, then for a book on his desk. He sits, realizing he unconsciously stopped taking headache medicine. Alexandra notes he never refilled the cigarettes Renee threw away. Renee playfully touches Alexandra's chin, asking, "Got it?" Renee smiles, while Alexandra's intense blue eye is shown. Young Renee and Alexandra playfully hold hands, then share a kiss. Young Alexandra and Renee share a tender kiss, bathed in light. Renee looks distraught, clasping her hands. Alexandra questions, "How?" and angrily wonders who the hell was with someone. Alexandra looks furious, questioning which bastard dared to. He smiles sadly, reflecting he has no right to such thoughts. Alexandre looks downcast, recalling pushing away and cruelly slapping a woman's gentle touch. He questions if he was missed, admitting he couldn't deny it. Alexandra reflects on hoping Renee would wait in Whitehall, realizing he still had such thoughts. Alexandra sits alone and pensive at his office desk. Dorothy expresses joyful surprise. Dorothy gushes over big news after Renee's injury and declares she needs to check inventory immediately, as a surprised Renee tells her to calm down. Dorothy rushes off to the warehouse, asking Renee to check approval documents. Renee, at her desk, praises Dorothy as a wonderful employee. Renee looks up, startled, questioning Nina. As Nina stands holding a package, Nina aggressively questions Renee's presence in the capital, calling her shameless for using another's resources. Nina, smirking, claims Renee's company was built by extorting money from Alexandra. Renee calls Nina rude, as Nina mentions the marriage contract, leaving Renee shocked by its existence. Nina holds up the contract, questioning if it's the reason Alexandre chose Renee. Nina dramatically gestures, mocking Renee for acting like the lady of the house over a pathetic contract. Nina threatens to expose Renee's secret, proclaiming Kaliba's Cinderella sold herself for money. With a menacing smile, Nina slams her hand on the contract, ordering Renee Hazelin out of her mansion. The scene concludes with a promotional image. A maid brushes a woman's with a comb, revealing the queen arranged another meeting for the Marquis and Lady Cassis. The woman in the yellow dress reacts with a shocked, "What?" The maid reassures her that the Marquis refused the meeting. The woman in yellow, surrounded by thoughts of a grand ballroom, believes the queen is desperate and wants a partner to end her annoyances. The woman is startled, questioning if Alexandra is present. She eyes Alexandra, thinking she should ask him to take her to the party, believing he must be tired of the queen's pressure. The woman descends the stairs, warmly welcoming Alexandra and asking if he is tired. The woman looks utterly shocked, while Alexandre stands with his arm around a surprised Renee. The woman in the yellow dress questions Renee's identity, as Alexandre and Renee walk away together. A broken wedding portrait. A voice claims, "That's my place." Shards of glass frame Alexandra and Renee as a voice insists she is the one Alexandra should be looking at. Alexandre and Renee share a kiss, while a woman in a white dress stands in the foreground, convinced Alexandre would never love a woman like her. A marriage contract between Miss Isabella Rodriguez and Mr. Julian Thorne. This contract is valid for a term of 2 years, beginning on July 1st, 2024, and ending on July 1st, 2026. Both parties agree to make a monthly donation of $5,000 to the Hazelin Orphanage. In the event of a divorce, Mr. Thorne agrees to provide alimony to Miss Rodriguez for a period of 1 year, with the amount to be determined by the court. The woman smirks, holding the marriage contract, asserting Alexandra would not love a woman like that. Images of Alexandra embracing Renee are overlaid with an accusation that Renee took advantage of him and stole the Kemble family's money. The woman stands over the contract, angrily demanding Renee Hazelin leave her mansion. The woman, sneering, questions if Renee's vulgar stunt is due to her countryside origins, demanding to know why she didn't just take the money. The woman mockingly asks if Renee thinks she's the real mistress just because everyone calls her madam. The enraged woman declares Renee a con artist and threatens to report her fraud to the queen if she doesn't leave immediately, while Renee remains silent. The infuriated woman slams her hand down, demanding if the other person understands the current situation. The woman rages, accusing Renee of pretending marriage for money and questioning if the queen, who sought a marriage for her granddaughter, will tolerate this deception. Renee covers her face in despair amidst ominous silhouettes, hearing threats that her company and orphanage will be ruined and she will be shamed. Nina menacingly questions if Renee cares about the marriage contract being revealed. Renee's eyes gleam with unwavering resolve. Renee holds up a marriage certificate, pointedly asking Nina if she is illiterate. Nina's eye widens in furious shock. Renee quickly pulls away the certificate with a snap. Nina stammers in disbelief, clutching the paper to her chest. Nina furiously demands how Renee switched the document, while Renee remains calm. Renee reflects on the strange theft, where only a key was stolen, not money. She deduces the thief needed the key for a current purpose. Renee orders Andrea to find Rosa, realizing the culprit's identity. Rosa struggles with a suitcase, desperately needing to leave Kaliba. Renee confronts a startled Rosa, questioning her late-night departure. Renee directly questions Rosa about stealing her key. Rosa nervously denies it. Renee confronts Rosa, warning her that conspiring with Nina and hiring a pocket pick could all be blamed on her. Rosa kneels, begging for mercy and admitting Nina threatened her. Crying, Rosa reveals she needed money for her mother and Nina blackmailed her. Rosa desperately begs for forgiveness, fearing her mother's death. Young Renee cries in anguish, shouting for her father to not die. Renee instructs Rosa to return to Nina for more money, promising protection if she switches the document. Renee, at her desk, notes Nina's betrayal by Rosa. Renee informs Nina that Rosa has left with her mother, thanks to Nina's money. Renee thoughtfully adjusts her ring. Renee smiles, questioning Nina's threats and asking if she would care to repeat them. A valid certificate of marriage between Alexander Kemble and Renee Hazelin Kemble is shown. A hand angrily rips the paper with a tear, dismissing it with, "Don't make me laugh." The smirking woman questions what legitimate couple means and if a stolen contract will silence her. Renee sits calmly at her desk, surrounded by torn papers. A heeled shoe steps on the torn contract, predicting people will believe Renee's fake marriage for money. Renee smirks knowingly at the enraged red-dressed woman. Renee smirks, provocatively mentioning the social circles. Renee stands and places her hand firmly on the table, facing the red-dressed woman. The red-dressed woman reacts in shock, asking what Renee just said. Renee challenges the red-dressed woman's ability to spread rumors, then questions if she's done talking. Renee calmly warns against slandering a marquis without proof. A man considers that such rumors would shake more than just one person. The enraged woman is challenged to spread rumors only if she can handle the repercussions. The red-dressed woman screams in anguish, clutching her blood-streaked head. Renee slaps the red-dressed woman with a loud smack, furiously questioning her actions. Alexandre's image is accompanied by thoughts, questioning if the woman understands his pain. Alexandre looks injured and distressed, covered in bloodstains. A thought bubble asserts only one person can comfort Alexandra's guilt. The red-dressed woman screams, declaring no place for a money-grubbing woman. Renee grabs the woman's arm, noting her hypocrisy about Alexandra's past guilt. Renee angrily questions the woman's knowledge of Alexandra and her use of his past as a weapon. Alexandra stands looking distant, while Renee gazes at him. Renee tells the red-dressed woman she only sees money, not Alexandra. The distraught red-dressed woman questions Renee's ability to help Alexandra. Renee asserts her capabilities, stating she can do anything the woman can. The red-dressed woman smirks, suggesting Renee loves Alexandra, to which Renee directly replies, "I do." The woman in the blue suit appears startled, holding a hand to her chest. She stands in a room opposite a woman in a white dress with red ribbons. Meanwhile, a man in a dark suit with striking blue eyes looks intently upwards. The woman in the white dress grimaces, thinking of the many lies surrounding her. The woman in the blue suit, Renee, warns Nina that the paper she steps on won't disappear. Nina deliberately steps on a marriage certificate with her white high heel. Renee, looking distressed, urges Nina to stop being unreasonable and leave. Nina forcefully crushes the paper under her heel with a distinct clang. The two women confront each other, Nina vowing to find a way to drive Renee out. Nina angrily tells a surprised Renee that she will regret this day. Renee stands alone in the room, gazing at the torn papers scattered on the floor. Renee collapses to her knees, lets out a sigh, and covers her tear-streaked face. The torn marriage certificate lies in two pieces on the wooden floor. Renee remains kneeling by the shattered certificate, visible through a large window. A warm sunset sky paints the clouds, signaling the passage of time. A harsh thought arises, labeling Renee Hazelin as sly for using a filthy trick. Nina chews her finger, contemplating how to handle the situation. Then someone calls her name. Nina looks shocked outside, exclaiming, "Alexander!" as he stands nearby, holding a cigarette. Nina inwardly panics about Alexander overhearing her conversation with his wife. Nina is horrified, realizing Alexander heard everything already. Alexander approaches. As Nina suspects Renee planned this far ahead, Nina defiantly states that Alexander hearing everything makes things easier, prompting his inquiry about her actions. Alexander stares sternly at Nina, who shivers with apprehension. Alexander points a finger, declaring his anger won't overshadow his guilt toward Nina, who looks terrified. He warns Nina not to forget her place, despite not calling her by a certain name. Nina turns her head away, a blush marking her cheek, feeling a sting of emotion. Alexander holds Nina, while she thinks this is all over a wife he doesn't love. Nina, lying on the ground, screams at Alexander, blaming him for her ruined life as he gives a final warning. Alexander firmly tells Nina to leave Kaliba, offering her money for a comfortable life. Alexander walks toward his car, advising Nina to think carefully about his offer. Nina shouts that her mother will come, causing Alexander to halt, shocked, and ask, "What?" Alexander looks enraged as Nina defiantly states she won't leave until her mother arrives. A cloaked figure, presumably Nina's mother, thinks about confronting Alexander upon her arrival. A dark thought reiterates the determination to find a way to drive someone out. Nina, fueled by anger, renews her vow that someone will regret this day. A narrative thought considers Nina's current lack of evidence, but the potential exposure of the marriage contract. Renee looks worried, realizing she should discuss this problem with Alexander. Renee walks away from the building, seemingly deep in thought. Alexander, standing by his car, calls out Renee's name, Alexandre. Renee looks startled, surprised by Alexander's sudden presence. Alexander winks mischievously. Alexander reminds Renee she sent a letter agreeing to buy him the meal she owed him today. Renee's eyes widen, remembering the letter he mentioned. Renee's internal struggle is reflected by the simple word enough. Renee sits on her bed, facing a portrait of herself and Alexander, wanting to stop being swayed. She realizes she sent the meal invitation in a fit of emotion after Alexander treated her burn. Renee covers her face with a hand, a tear rolling down her cheek in despair. A chibi Alexander teases a guilty chibi Renee about almost standing him up. Alexander lets out a soft chuckle. Alexander reads a document, revealing a postscript to bring divorce papers without delay to their meeting. Renee recalls Alexandra's dramatic demand for the divorce agreement. Renee walks along the street, gripping her bag tightly. Alexandra walks beside Renee, glancing her way. A close-up highlights Alexandra's elegant tie and brooch. A beautiful sunset over a building precedes Renee and Alexandra's restaurant meeting. Alexandra places a plate for Renee, assuring her not to worry about Nina. Renee and Alexandra share a serene outdoor dinner. Alexandra dabs his mouth, confirming their marriage was legally handled. Renee worries about unchecked variables despite the positive news. Nina, seething, wonders if she can truly remain silent. Renee worries about Nina retaliating against Rosa and exposing the marriage contract. Renee regrets not safeguarding the contract more carefully. Renee looks surprised during her dinner with Alexandra. Alexandra offers to monitor Rosa if Renee is concerned. Alexandra reminds Renee their marriage contract was a mutual agreement. Alexandra's eye gleams with a determined glint. Renee's eye reveals her continuing worry. Alexandra compliments Renee's choice of restaurant. Renee subtly smiles, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. Alexandra pauses, thinking about Mr. Littrey. Renee recognizes Mr. Littrey as the pickpocket's catcher. Mr. Littree smiles charmingly. Renee and Mr. Littree talk on a moonlit balcony. Alexandre sips wine, reflecting on Mr. Littree's character. Renee and Alexandre continue their dinner as a maid works. The table is set with candles and drinks. Renee sips tea, asking for the divorce agreement. A thick, plain envelope holds the divorce agreement. Renee looks surprised by the divorce agreement's thickness. Single tear escapes Renee's eye. Alexandra sips wine, asking Renee to specify. The agreement details vast land, a villa, a yacht, and a car. The agreement includes a car, jewelry, wine, and even an island. Renee is shocked by the insane amount of alimony.
Alexandre smirks, hinting at even more.
Renee considers public scrutiny of her post-divorce assets. Alexandra explains a small settlement would diminish his reputation. Alexandra warns investors might pull out over perceived weak capital. Alexandra confidently tells Renee to simply accept it. Chibi Renee questions Alexandra's wealth, and he teases her. Renee sighs, overwhelmed by the extensive document. Renee exhales, struggling to comprehend the vastness. Alexandra tells Renee to accept it without overthinking. Alexandra asserts it's simply the fair price. Renee looks pensive, deep in thought. The open document confirms the deal in compensation. Renee looks at the document, asking what's next. Alexandra states a new model launch follows the divorce. Alexandra wants to avoid personal drama for the company. Renee hums, realizing his motives were expected. Alexandra proposes extending their contract for 6 months before divorcing. Renee stands opposite Alexandra, holding her bag. Alexandra's hand rests upon a document. Renee looks surprised, questioning Alexandra's intentions. Renee questions whether Alexandra wants her to endure more tense time with him. Their reflections dance on the patterned ground. A thought bubble questions the nerve-wracking period. Alexandra's intense blue eye is highlighted. Renee smiles, firmly stating there will be no extension. She touches her lips, admitting her forced acceptance. Alexandra smiles, thinking of meaningless smiles. He carries Renee, reflecting on mischievous teasing. Their clasped hands and a passionate kiss reveal Renee is deeply affected by his touch. She looks downcast, letting out a soft sigh. Renee stands, realizing she is in love with him. Fragmented images show her pain, knowing he doesn't love her. Alexandra's intense eye reflects her lack of sincerity. Alexandra reflects on actions that betrayed his past love. She covers her face in deep despair. Renee, with a gentle smile, confidently states there will be no extension. She smiles, remembering Alexandra's cruel words. Alexandra looks distraught as Renee asserts her independence. Renee agrees to delay paperwork for 3 months, but will move out immediately. Alexandra taps his wine glass, finding her offer acceptable. Renee smiles, seeking time for a fresh start. Alexandra's eye gleams, indicating a mischievous thought. Alexandra smirks, questioning her new beginning after divorce. Renee clasps her hands, proudly displaying her ring. Renee sits, smiling, revealing no particular plans. Renee anticipates being busy caring for her uncle and orphanage children. Renee declares herself the children's sole protector. She stands on a sunny beach, resolute not to break down. Renee looks at Alexandra, refusing to share her burdens. Renee smiles, declaring plans for wild trips and shopping. Alexandra stands elegantly, his gaze distant. Renee sips tea, planning a decadent year of wild activities. They sit across from each other at the table. Renee vows to try everything, prompting Alexandra's skeptical, "Ah, really?" Alexandra stands over seated Renee with a soft scrape. Alexandra smiles, extending his hand. Renee looks shocked as Alexandra abruptly pulls her arm. Renee shouts, "Wait, Alexandra!" at his smirk. Alexandra leads Renee away, who questions their destination. Passengers disembark at a busy train station. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, Largo, Largo. Largo, Largo, Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, Largo, Largo. Largo, Largo, Largo. Largo, Largo, Largo. Largo, 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 Largo. Less than control 100 greater than Largo, 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 Largo. Largo, 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 less than control 100 greater than Largo, 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 Well, Hawkins high five freely is also rule over this arcant was cut from was by hand I know what accent condescend. Largo 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 was done off fully the end of the reference argument pedagogos. Largo 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 schools. You control 100 go largo 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 largo. That still largo the graded not my number gin. Sustained and devoted graded tire must at all to vintueta bras. He graded done 1T and check it astro vemona greco. Largo 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 less than control 100 greater than. A woman curses constant interference at crucial moments. A train conductor looks startled by a sudden crash. A man loudly declares he's leaving, complaining about noise. A man grabs the conductor, who warns him to stop. A woman watches a man in glasses advise against making a scene. A man in a dark suit says he understands, as a hand reaches towards him with a soft thump. A man in a white shirt and suspenders walks away carrying a coat, accompanied by a woman in a green dress and hat, as another man in a black hat watches them. Maggie Chambler, identified as Nina's biological mother, holds hands with the man in the white shirt and suspenders. Targo Horban, identified as Maggie's lawyer and consort, smiles while adjusting his hat. Maggie expresses that 2 years is not enough time for much to change, while Targo asks her to go with him. Maggie stands by a horse-drawn carriage as Targo, holding a suitcase, asks the driver to place the luggage on top. A smiling carriage driver asks Maggie where he can take the beautiful lady as she stands with her arms crossed. Targo questions Maggie, asking if she is going to Nina. Maggie smiles coyly. Then a hand is shown, flicking a gold coin with a sharp thwing. Gold coins tumble amidst thorny vines and red liquid, directed towards Kemble House, as a thought declares the ill-mannered daughter-in-law needs proper education.